just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to the middle of the week. Welcome to Wednesday, halfway to the weekend. And that means time to hear from the camel.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo! Yes, it is. It's hump day. Like I said, you're halfway to the weekend. We're going to get you all the way to go home time on a Friday afternoon. In the meantime, JP's pushing buttons on the board. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Feel better today.
You are better today.
Hey, it's NyQuil and DayQuil do a wonder, I guess.
I see no phlegm on your microphone over there. That's good.
Yeah. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad, but yeah, I feel better. So
Came in here sounding almost tubercular yesterday.
Yeah, it was kind of bad.
But no, I'm glad you're better. That's good. That's good. Hey, we got a great show laid on for you. So coming up at 4 p.m., beginning of hour number 3, do not forget, as always, we hear the camel at the front of a Wednesday. We hear Grand Council towards the end. So, yeah, Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and little old me on the Grand Council at the beginning of hour number 3. You're not going to want to miss that. In the meantime, I still got a triple dipper full of stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate. Listen, we're overdue. Gotta have it. Gotta. Every once in a while when I'm resourcing the show early in the morning, I find woke this and woke that. Look at all the woke over here. And oh my gosh, all the wokeness. Next thing I know, I got like a whole buffet of wokeness. I got like a plethora, a veritable cornucopia, a charcuterie, if you will, of wokeness. And yes, that means it is time once again for adventures in woke world. So we'll start off talking about that one to include updates on lab grown meat. Okay. All right. Then number 2 on the Triple Dipper, I'm going to jump on into some culture wars. Yeah, it's not just about wokeness. It's about what are we doing to reclaim common sense? What are we doing in the culture wars? Right now, we have the driver's seat, and we as conservatives are pushing back in a way that is long overdue. But we're going to talk about the culture wars and what that means coming up number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, it's amazing to me how much fallout there still is from the Charlie Kirk assassination. And when I say fallout, I'm talking about way beyond the investigation of the murder itself. I'm not talking about the arrest and the arraignment of the shooter. I'm talking about how many people are, losing their jobs, what's being said in different places, what impact it's having on people's lives. We're going to talk about the Charlie Kirk fallout. That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys, as always, that attorney Stan McDonald, a longtime practitioner of law in North Alabama, longtime conservative. And, oh, by the way, the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. But let me start by saying, okay, I have a confession to make. I do. Hear me out. Don't judge me. I have a Pinterest account. I do. It's true. Phil Williams, Army Ranger, lawyer, talk show guy, has a Pinterest page. Now, in my defense, a Phil Williams Pinterest page looks a lot different than a lovely Charlene Pinterest page. And in fact, I actually scoffed for quite some time about Pinterest, where in my previous position on the matter, I believe that women just went to Pinterest to do the modern equivalent of window shopping. Charlene's Pinterest was filled up with the latest fashions, the flowers, the craft projects for grandkids. Not a dude thing in sight. Not a single dude thing. I poked fun at it. And then one day, I learned that my son had a Pinterest page. What is this heresy? My son on Pinterest? Let it not be. But then he showed me his page. And it was filled with guns and cars and backpacks and field gear. And the light went on. Wait a minute. There's Pinterest for dudes? And yes, there is. And suddenly I was in. I was window shopping for guns, gear, and go-fast cars. It was everything from holsters and hardware to men's haberdashery. All the stuff that I can't afford but would love to buy. All the food that I shouldn't eat but would love to try. Every day on Pinterest on my page was like strolling through a combination of a classic car show in the parking lot of a Bass Pro Shop while eating deep-fried Wagyu steak burgers and swilling craft beer. It was awesome. It was every first world dream come true in living color. First world toys for first world boys. That's first world stuff, man. Things you don't really need, but you'd love to have, right? Which is, in essence, what being in the first world's all about. You see, in the first world, we have wants galore because most of our needs have all been met. Think about it. We have wants in the first world everywhere because most of our needs have actually been met. I mean, it's just hard living in the first world. You know, you hear about the third world, even the second world, countries where the questions and concerns revolve around whether or not there's going to be another meal or whether the warring factions are going to come burn your village. But here in the first world, folks can get upset because the foam wasn't right on their grande pumpkin spice latte. That's a classic first world problem, by the way. It's all a matter of perspective, really. I mean, in one part of the world, the question is not whether or not to walk, but rather how far to walk. While here in the first world, we have a whole new layer of first world problems that come in the form of things like range anxiety, because you're not sure if your $90,000 Rivian SUV is going to make it the full distance to your beach house on a single charge. The first world, like too often, doesn't even have a clue, really. The first world, I mean, a whole day in the first world can be set into some kind of ruinous position by merely having your Wi-Fi go down or misplacing your AirPods. In the first world, we set up silly rules like not wearing white until after Labor Day. I mean, meanwhile, in the third world, every day is Labor Day because every day requires labor and you wear what you have because that's all you have. In the first world, armies can't train because farmers can't farm and hunters can't hunt if, God forbid, the EPA finds a red-cockaded woodpecker or a snail darter somewhere within a 5-mile radius. Not so long ago, cadets here at West Point in the first world were actually tasked with developing ways that the military academy could move towards being carbon neutral, because in the first world, the military fights climate change, apparently. Yeah, because in the first world, climate change is an existential crisis. In other parts of the world, they just want more rain. In the first world, it's quite possible to walk into a closet full of clothes and come out and announce you have nothing to wear. In the first world, you can have a real problem with the fact that your DoorDash got the food to your kitchen from the kitchen to your front door in more than 15 minutes. In the first world, it can be a real pain to run out of toilet paper or have to squeeze really hard to get the last toothpaste out of the tube. Look, life's rough in the first world, man. We got problems. But like I said, those are first world problems. And I'll be honest, I'm guilty of it too. Forgot my phone charger. Oh no, can't find the remote for the TV. What? Who turned the thermostat down? What happened to same-day delivery? Why is the fast food line so backed up? I've been irritated at all those things at one point in time or another because I live in the first world. Technically, I guess I have a Pinterest mentality where I see things that I want, not necessarily things that I need. But every once in a while, though, that perspective actually gets restored. And I realize how good we've got it. Like a few years ago, I was on a speaker on a mission trip to Reynosa, Mexico, just across the border from McAllen, Texas. I was working, it was a mission trip. We were building so-called houses, but really calling them houses was a stretch. On one of the builds, we built a rock-solid wood frame, a raised floor, a building that was roughly only 10 feet by 10 feet. We built wood platforms inside that little house, 3 feet high, for the family members to use like beds. It was a husband and wife and 3 kids that had been living in a dirt floor shack about the same size right next to it. Oh yeah, and by the way, the husband in that little family that was living in the shed that we built them was handicapped. He had a large tricycle-type wheeled chair that he moved around by turning the pedals with his hands. So we added a ramp to get in and out of the new house, and they were ecstatic, and they were excited, and they were appreciative. And I came home and I realized the garden shed in my backyard was equivalent to the house that I just helped build in Reynosa, Mexico. Except that technically, my shed had glass windows and a locking door. First world problems, man. It's about perspective. It's about having a sense of gratitude. It's about looking at our blessings and telling God, I do not take this for granted. One of my favorite movies also stars one of my favorite actors. You've probably seen it, The Book of Eli. I love that movie. The Book of Eli starring Denzel Washington. It is so good. I've watched it multiple times. If you haven't seen it, the movie is set in a post-apocalyptic world, and Denzel Washington's character plays a guy named Eli. He's walking across what used to be America. Now it's war-torn and destroyed. He's carrying the last Bible in the world, and he believes that his mission is to take it out west. He doesn't know where. He just knows to take the Bible out west. And he fights and he struggles, and he reads the Bible daily, and he quotes it often. And he walks like that for 30 years. Until he comes to a small survivor town run by a bad guy who wants his Bible. Now, I won't tell you the whole story, but suffice to say, this is the first world. This is a first world that has been pushed back to like the 10th or 11th world in the movie. It's a dark time in the movie filled with depravity and despair and deterioration, a total lack of consistency. And at one point, the character of Eli is talking in his quiet but firm way to a young lady who asks him, what was it like back before? Before. And Eli, in his quiet but firm way, said, people had more than they needed. We had no idea what was precious and what wasn't. We threw away things that people would kill each other for now. And it's true. You see, it's about perspective. I mean, what if you went to bed one night in the first world and you woke up in the third world? What would you do? How would you get by? Could you handle third world problems? Because it's all about perspective. Lee Greenwood, he labeled it pretty well in the opening lines to his classic song, Proud to be an American. He said, if tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today where the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. So yeah, think about where you are. The darkest alley in America is often better than the so-called roads in some places in the world. If the average American goes to the sink and turns the handle, clean drinking water comes out. When we flip a switch by the door, we actually expect the lights to come on. If you miss the turnoff to the gas station, don't worry, there's going to be another one a few minutes down the road. And not having work, well, that's technically a choice if you get down to it. If your charging cable's too short, you can order a new one and have it here in days without leaving your couch. You can pause live TV, remote start your car, adjust your thermostat, dim the lights, boost your Wi-Fi signal, and have your trash picked up right there at your curb. It's first world, man, so don't complain. In fact, if you don't like something, you more often than not have other options that would allow you to make changes if you wanted to. Referring back to that movie, The Book of Eli, later in the same movie, the young lady realized that Eli was leaving and she told him, I want to come with you. To which he replied, no, you don't. She said, I hate it here. And he said, well, then change it. That's what he told her. See, in the first world, you always have options. It's really about perspective. And part of that perspective is built on being grateful, realizing that what we have at times may get ugly. And there may be fights, there may be feuds and foibles along the way, but we live in the greatest country on the face of the earth, bar none, by God. Every single day in America is like a Pinterest page to someone in the third world. It's true. If you don't believe me, go there for yourself and see it. And then come home and look at what you got. First world problems are really just third world blessings. We've got it good. I wouldn't live anywhere else. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yes, I do have a Pinterest page, and it's filled up with dude stuff. But like I said, it's technically filled up with what I would call first world dude stuff. The idea that we live here and have so much, so often we take it for granted. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. The interview we just had with Mike Durant, author of In the Company of Heroes, the pilot who was shot down in Black Hawk Down. He became a national icon, an international icon, really, as images of him being held captive in Somalia were transmitted around the world. The way he tells his story, though, is as amazing as his story. So sit back, enjoy your time, hear about things that you're going to think about for the rest of your life after this discussion we're going to have with Mike Durant on the Just Right podcast. Yeah, let's do a show.
1, 2, 3, hey!
Hey, Mike Durant, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm honored to have you. And listen, I'm going to run through just a quick intro of who you are so folks knew who I got sitting across from me. All
Sure.
right? Some of this is going to be unpacked in more detail, but I know for a fact you were born in New Hampshire, but you call Alabama home, have for a number of years. 22 years active military. First enlisted, I think, in 79?
You got it.
Weren't you a Spanish linguist?
I was.
Yeah.
And don't ask me to speak Spanish. They taught us to, the school that I went to, the focus was to just be able to understand it, not speak it. So I can still understand a little bit, but I'm not a very good speaker.
Did some intercept work down there in Panama, right?
I did.
Yeah. I got family ties there. My grandfather was post commander. It was at Corzal, I think it was one of the, years ago. Became a warrant officer in 83, which I still don't understand the warrant officer mafia. I never knew whether you guys got saluted or what was going on with that. But anyway, warrant officer in 83, flight school, Fort Rucker. 5 years later, you were selected for the elite 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Nightstalkers, which we're going to talk about in a lot of detail. 3 distinguished flying crosses, Bronze Star with a V device, Purple Heart, and fairly rare in modern times, a Prisoner of War medal. And then you retired as a CW4, am I right? Chief Warrant Officer 4?
That's correct. 2 DFCs.
2 DSCs. Yeah. Well, okay, just 2. Got your undergrad and your master's from Embry-Riddle, is that right?
That's correct.
And built a successful defense contracting firm, Pinnacle Solutions, which you've retired from now. And you're married, and most importantly, you've had 6 kids.
We do.
Got your own basketball team.
Yeah, with some bench.
Well, good enough. Well, hey, thanks for being on the Just Right podcast. Appreciate you.
Again, my pleasure. I do always enjoy time spent with you. I think, we certainly have some common history, and you get it. And it's kind of nice to talk to people who get it, because when you talk to people who don't get it, it's a little bit frustrating, and you got to get drilled down into areas you feel like it's tedious, but with you, that's not the case.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. And we'll just have to make sure we don't slip into acronyms or something like that.
Well, that is easy to do, and then you can lose a lot of folks that way. But I've gotten pretty good at trying to avoid that.
Well, let me ask you this. I want folks to get to know who you are as much as your story, because your story is amazing. I've got your book sitting right here in the Company of Heroes. I read it years ago, and I've had a copy on my shelf. In fact, I think I told you before the show, my son nabbed it. He's stationed down at Benning, so he's got it with him, so I had to get another copy for today. But let me ask you, how did it start with you in the military? You're a kid in New Hampshire. Why the military? I mean, what happened there that said, that's where I want to lead my life?
So, I characterize myself as a blue-collar kid. I mean, working parents, we were certainly not poor, but we weren't really well off either, and never saw myself as necessarily college material. I did fairly well in school when I tried, but I wasn't necessarily motivated to go to college. And I lived in a paper mill town, and a lot of people went to work in the mill. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people to do that. That's, if that's what you want to do. But I just couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And when I was about 14, and it's about the time you start thinking about, what am I going to do when I get out of college? Doesn't keep you up at night, but, you start pondering that kind of stuff. I had a major turning point in my life. I went on a helicopter flight with a friend of the family.
No kidding.
His name is Joe Brigham. He was a warrant officer in the National Guard. He also had his own business. And as I found out later, I wasn't the only young teenager that he ever did this with. He took a few of us up that he wanted to try to inspire, and it absolutely impacted me. I mean,
no kidding.
We're flying over Mount Washington, which is the highest mountain in the Northeast. It's 6,280 feet. We're basically hovering. The aircraft was kind of primitive by today's standards, I guess I would say. Is kind of a glass bubble. If you remember the MASH helicopters, similar to that. And it's like you're just floating in space. And I'm looking at, like, again, I'd flown on a small airplane before, but never anything like this experience. And I said, you could actually do this as a job? And he says, yeah. And he said, you could, if you join the Army, they'll send you to flight.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like making common sense like a superpower. Yeah. So text lines are open. Some of y'all already figured that out. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it in. Tell me what you think. Love to hear your thoughts on the monologue. By the way, speaking of the monologue, sponsor of the Rightside Way Daily is attorney Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. Y'all, I know the guy personally. I think the world of him. And I will tell you this, he's not only a good lawyer, he has been a long-time conservative, a right-side ruffian from way back, and all the conservative policies and politics that we care about. So, yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, though, he has represented his clients in like literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald is on your side, you will have no greater friend, and likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So that being said, you need a lawyer in North Alabama. I'm going to give you a number to call him. You ready? Stan McDonald, the law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's the number, 256-479-3020. That's 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And no organization made the quality legal services would ever be considered bad because he advertises on Rightside Radio. That tells you a lot about the guy. He's also a really good lawyer. I like him. So there. All right, text lines, man. What do we got? We got a bunch of stuff already.
You know, whenever you do your monologue book, you know, the book of all your monologues, maybe you ought to put that disclaimer at the end of each monologue on each page, just for the heck.
No representation is made
Yeah.
for quality legal services bad. Hey, so before I get text messages, so do you have a Pinterest page?
I do not. No, I think didn't Pinterest kind of blow up like
It may have.
2015, 2016?
I really
there?
haven't looked at it in a while, but I was all in for a while there. I was like, I can look at, oh, look at that one. Look at that Mustang. Look at that pistol.
Because I think it really blew up when like I was like in middle school, early high school, and I just remember all of the like girls in my class being obsessed with Pinterest, and so from then on, I was like, "This is not a knock on you," but that's what it was when it started.
I
But
see what you just did.
there's a lot of cool stuff on Pinterest, I will say, even though I don't have a Pinterest account.
There's a whole world of dude Pinterest,
Yes, yeah,
like major dude Pinterest.
I haven't had an account myself, but yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of cool stuff on there.
I mean, yeah, my Pinterest account, like I said, is filled up with guns and go fast cars.
Yeah. Maybe we should start that. Maybe we should make a males only Pinterest account where it's all just guns and cars and
Somehow I feel like that would go badly at some point.
it probably would.
Like next thing you know, we got the Rightside OnlyFans account
Yeah.
going or
Oh,
something
gosh.
bad. You know, so
No,
just don't let this happen.
no.
Yeah. Okay. Now I just want to pull up my Pinterest account and start surfing through it. And by the way, I saved a bunch of stuff. Like we built our house, and so house ideas were everywhere. How do we want the back deck to look like? What's it going to be? You know. So next thing you know, Pinterest. I've got a whole house thing going to the Pinterest. All right. Text lines are indeed open. Roughly Ann from Huntsville checking in goes, "Oh no, not lab grown meat." I'm telling you, Roughly Ann, it's a thing. Lab grown meat. Watch out. Bev from Madison says, Mr. Williams superbly said, thanks. Thank you, Bev. Scott from Russellville says, monologues just keep getting better. Man, thank you, brother. He says, love the book of Eli. Very appropriate references. Ready to volunteer to edit your book. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, book of Eli, by the way, is one of those, like if Charlene and I are watching TV together and I'm hitting the channels trying to find something, if book of Eli's on, at some point she's going to go, I don't recall saying, let's watch this. Yeah, but honey, it's at the part where I gotta see the thing happen. I love that movie. You ever seen it?
It is a great movie.
Okay,
yeah.
good. You've seen one.
Yeah.
Oh, my faith is restored. Okay, we're taking a break. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
And you could do this as a career. And I'm like, okay, if this is a possibility for me,
Sold.
yeah, I'll take it. And ultimately, when I got old enough, I went and talked to the recruiter. And you probably heard the joke, you know a recruiter's lying because their lips are moving. They have a quota. They're trying to fill certain slots.
Sure.
And there are programs that are available sometimes, and sometimes they're not. And he told me, sorry, but flight school program's not available for people coming right in off the street. You're going to have to join the military first, and then you can apply for flight school afterwards, which is all correct. But I didn't really know whether he was telling me the truth about, could I have applied to go directly to flight school? But either way, and another smart thing I did, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I have made some good decisions along the way, is I spoke to someone else about joining the military, and I think you and Jared had talked about this, or he did, and you don't want to just go join the military, right? There has to be a purpose to it. I mean, serving the country is noble and it's great, and we need people to do that. But for you as an individual, you should also be thinking about, what can I do with this in the life after the military?
Sure, absolutely.
And I was offered to go to, as we discussed before we got on camera, the Spanish language school in Monterey, California, to be in military intelligence. And how marketable is that? I don't know. But, I was convinced that, well, they'll send me to school for a year to learn Spanish. I'll be a military intelligence analyst. that's probably something
Sounds sexy.
worth something. Yeah. and then I can possibly apply for flight school. Okay, we'll go ahead and sign this. And it was one of those cases where I had gone off to talk to the recruiter on my own and then came back to the house. I'd already signed the paperwork. My parents had not been informed at all. And they were kind of shocked, right? But I said, I think this sounds like a pretty good deal. Let's give it a try. And then I was stunned by the reality of basic training. I just,
No kidding.
I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I just wasn't.
But who really is?
Yeah, I guess no one is.
That's back when drill sergeants could be drill sergeants.
Yes, I mean it was quite a lifestyle change. Is all I could say.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living in an open barracks with 20 guys that you've never met before from all over the country. They treat by design. They treat you like crap, right? I mean, it's probably not as bad as some of the other military training that goes on, but it's going from a high school kid with long hair and concert T-shirts on and didn't care about anything except girls and some sports. This is a radical lifestyle change. And I at that point was thinking, I have made a mistake. This is not what I thought it was going to be. And I don't know what I did think it was going to be, but it certainly shocked me to the point where I was thinking about, I don't know if I can get out of this, but if I can, I need to.
Well, was there anybody in your life like you had this warrant officer from the Guard who gave you the flight in the helicopter? But did you have any military in your family? I mean, was there anything watching it as you grew up? Like my family's been generational Army, so my son watched 3 generations before him do stuff, and then he wanted to do it.
Right.
But did you have anything like that?
They were in the Guard. My uncles were in the Guard.
All
My
right.
father was in the Guard. But to me, that's different. I mean, you just sort of see them, go once a month. Not that the Guard isn't a great,
No,
organization, but it's just
it wasn't a full life.
right. And you still live at home. Unless you get deployed, obviously. But I wasn't prepared. And I was again to the point where if I could get out of this, I need to, and was convinced that I should stay by the drill sergeant, and I did. And at that point, got like super motivated. I got like the PT award, physical training award of the whole class in basic training. I scored the highest, and just really got motivated that okay, if I am going to do this, I'm going to do the best job that I possibly can. And then I went on to language school, advanced individual training, where they teach you how to actually do what you're on contract to do. And then I went to Panama.
You Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the Southeast US of A. Y'all have talked about this show. This show goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Oh, yeah, that's just the radio. And then, oh, by the way, there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, logging in and watching the live stream of the show, staring right into the studio with us on places like X and YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you guys that are podcasters that catch it after the fact. I say all that all the time for the very sole reason of making sure you understand that wherever you catch this show, it means something to us. We can see it. We know you're there. You're the only reason why we do it. So thank you. Thank you very much. I got some more text messages I want to catch up on here real quick because y'all are some texting machines today. 833-687-4448. You got any over there first before I jump into mine? What you got?
We got a couple people on the live stream. Pat Jones saying hello from Decatur, Alabama.
Hello, Pat Jones.
Dennis says, as always, a great monologue. We also got John from Huntsville on there saying happy hump day. CGI Joe with some camel emojis for hump day. But then we also got the Drummond Marine. You were talking about first world problems, and there's a lot of other problems in the world that we don't have to deal with. Drummond Marine, he texted in and said, Phil, you remember Mosin water in Iraq, bottled water by the pallets?
Yes, I do. In fact, what was funny, there was one of the waters we got pallets of and pallets and pallets of, and it came from Saudi Arabia, I think, but it had a high mineral content in it, and it would give me heartburn.
Hmm.
I actually had somebody say, water gives you heartburn. I said, this one does.
This one does. Yeah.
But yeah,
We got one more just come in. LS Rivas said Northwest Alabama here too.
outstanding. Glad you're in the house. Richard from Madison on my text line over here. He says, Colonel, I've been turning off the news because the political battles have been bringing me down. And then lo and behold, I hear an inspiring message about appreciating the blessings that are in your life. Thank you for the break from politics and for sharing such a positive, uplifting message. Many are called, few are chosen. God bless you, sir. Richard, thank you for that. And I'll be honest with you, I told JP before the show today, that was my intent. That was absolutely my intent today. I even told the lovely Charlene this morning, I felt like today I needed to lighten things up a little bit as best I could. I think we needed that break. And in fact, I needed it. And I was looking forward to that monologue for that very reason. Jenny from Decatur sends me a meme. What she sent? The meme says, suddenly it doesn't seem so shocking that the crowd would cheer for the release of Barabbas, a criminal and a murderer, while condemning Jesus, the man who peacefully spoke the truth. You know, I've thought about that. I've actually thought that same thing, that you wonder how a crowd could do that. And yet now we're watching real time.
Yeah. Well, somebody put up a tweet that said something about how I've seen all the reactions to Charlie Kirk's death, and it's not shocking to me anymore or he said, I realized this generation would have put Jesus on the cross. And then somebody reposted and goes, the real radical position is every generation would have put Jesus on the cross.
Wow.
Every single one.
Wow.
It's just humanity.
You know, the other biblical thing that I've thought more than once, I used to read, like in the Old Testament, when they would sacrifice children to Baal or to Moloch. And I thought, what does it take to get to a point that you're sacrificing your children like that? You're like casting them into the fire or you know, and then in the last few years, especially with the whole transgender surgeries on minors and the idea that, you know, we should tell kids they're only affirmed if they get different. I'm watching them being sacrificed on a regular basis. And I thought, oh, yeah, I see it. I see it in real time. Stephen from Athens says, great monologue, Phil. You know, I once heard an appropriate quote, far too many of us in the United States are possessed by our possessions. True. Said, I recently sold a house in Madison, and while moving, I realized that too many of us, including me, have too much stuff. Now I'm going to watch that movie again. Stephen, appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. Clint from Tony says, Phil, your monologue today reminded me of a few conversations I had with my father, who has gone on to his reward. He was a young boy during the Depression. Almost overnight, his family went from farming for a landowner to having to collect watercress and other wild produce, as well as hunting for food with a slingshot and a fishing spear. This was possible in North Georgia only because people were willing to take care of each other and watch out for one another. Said, I feel if something like that happened in this day and age, it'd mean the extinction of most of the people in the U.S. simply because they would refuse to do what was needed to survive and forget about helping others. Wow, Clint, man, that's there's a whole dipper in that right there. I could do a whole show on that. John from Huntsville said, Phil, fantastic monologue. Thank you, sir. He said, also, did you hear that Jerry from Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream has quit the business over a dispute relating to their ability to speak independently about social issues? I had not, but okay. He says, by the way, JP, your Falcons NFL team looks much improved.
Just wait. They'll be bad next week.
That's the most pessimistic, pragmatic view of
This is how you survive as a Falcons fan. You don't get your hopes up, even when you're in the Super Bowl up 28-3, because then they'll still lose.
I had a few years as an Auburn fan that way. I did. Of course, you guys had a few years before your time, really, I guess.
Yeah,
Bama fans.
Alabama football makes being a Falcons fan a little bit more tolerable.
Okay. I got to finish these up because y'all are great. John C. from Madison says, I think I drank a case and a half up to 2 cases in Saudi Arabia. I got tired of straight water. Yeah. And then Richard from Madison said, mission accomplished, sir. Thank you, bro. All right. Listen, every once in a while, ever so often, I'm resourcing the show and I find myself going, my gosh, at the wokeness. Did you see all the wokeness? How can we have that much wokeness? And then, like I like to say, holy cow, suddenly I realize I have developed an entire buffet, a veritable cornucopia, a vast plethora, if you will, of wokeness, which means it's time for another round of adventures in woke world.
Adventures in woke world.
We ought to call this one Adventures in Lab Grown Meat. Oh, jeez. Listen, you know what? I've got a pretty high gag reflex. Nothing bothers me for the most part. Every once in a while, something comes along, though, that just makes me want to go, I just look at it and go, no, that is not meant to happen. We've talked about lab-grown meat on this show before, but I've got a brand spanking new story here. Came out just a little bit earlier this year. Oh, and there's a picture, and JP has got the live stream going. JP, that's exactly what I pictured when I pictured lab-grown meat. This flappy little pile of mucus on a plate. That's what that is. We should not be given something that looks like phlegm and be told to go ahead and expect to eat it. That is not the way this works. I'm just sorry.
That
That's
encapsulates
gross.
it perfectly, though.
That is, I don't even want to look at it. Okay, story from NBC. Scientists have grown a nugget-sized piece of chicken. No, they haven't. It's fake. Can't call it chicken. Might taste like chicken, but you can't call it chicken. Scientists have grown a nugget-sized piece of chicken using a new method that can, okay, God, this is awful. Jeez. Can deliver nutrients and oxygen to artificial tissues, marking a major breakthrough in cultured meat. There's no culture in this one, I can tell you right. This is like uncouth. It's not cultured. Previous methods only made small scattered cell balls. Oh, God. They're making this. Hey, JP, how would you like your small scattered cell balls?
Scrambled, please.
It says that they typically closely mimic the texture of muscle. Oh, my God. Tiny pieces clumped together around an edible scaffolding. What in God's name is an edible scaffolding? They put like something in there and things begin to adhere to it, I guess. The edible scaffolding. Okay. The scientists developed a bioreactor that mimicked a circulatory system. Well, of course they did. Using 50 hollow fibers acting like veins, oh my God, to distribute nutrients and oxygen to the meat, keeping the cells alive and guiding them. This is how this is how the zombie apocalypse starts.
Isn't the lab grown meat the way it grows in a petri dish is like how cancer cells grow?
Yes.
It mimics cancer because it grows and grows and grows, and they couldn't assure that it would ever stop growing if you were to eat it.
Yes.
AKA cancer. Exactly, cancer.
That's exactly right. Consumers in the United States have mixed attitude toward, you think?
Yeah.
Have mixed attitudes toward cultured meat. About a third say they're not even willing to try cultivated chicken. Good for them. 40% reject cultivated pork. Even better. According to a 2024 poll conducted by Purdue University. Singapore, the U.S., and Israel are the only 3 countries in the world that will currently allow. Of course we did. Why would we not? It's America. But you know what, though? There's 2 states that have banned it. Pray tell, what are they? Do you know?
I know one of them's Texas because they just did it recently. Did they not?
Nope. Florida and Alabama.
Huh.
If Texas had done it recently, it must be very recent. Maybe since this article. But my God.
It says Texas has banned the production of lab-grown meat starting September 1st, 2025.
There you go.
Yes. I know I saw
Don't
it
mess
recently.
with Texas. All right.
Yeah.
So far, Texas, Alabama, and Florida are leading the pack on getting rid of the small scattered cell balls. Put that picture back up. That on those of you watching the live stream. Oh my God. I want you to look at that and tell me why that is something you would go to a restaurant and order. By the way, people do that. There's a restaurant right now in San Francisco. Well, of course, in San Francisco that will serve cultivated meat.
So what's the appeal from like the climate change? I assume it's the same people, like the climate folks.
It's
like
the wackos.
What's the appeal to having lab-grown meat?
I'll tell you what, they call it no-kill meat.
Oh, okay. But I thought cows and their flatulence cause global warming. So wouldn't they want to kill more like cows and animals to
Don't
limit
conflate
global?
the issues.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm making too much sense.
I've got a piece that came out last month off of a Substack. This is like in late June of this year, Upside and Good Meat, those are 2 companies that make the fake scattered cell balls. Upside and Good Meat got the official thumbs up from the United States Department of Agriculture to sell their cultured chicken products. Oh my God. They use different terms like cell-based, cultivated, clean, slaughter-free, in vitro, lab-grown, and nano-pastured meat. Nano-pastured?
Nano-pastured.
Nano-pastured? Okay. Nano pastured meat. Fantastic news, it says, for the cultivated meat industry and for the environment, given that livestock agriculture generates 15% of total greenhouse gas emissions. So I guess we're going to slaughter cows but not eat them, so then we can go ahead anyway. It goes on to talk about how many, Petri dishes it takes and how the USDA has apparently approved it. And then it says the cow, chicken, and pigs are being disrupted. This is awful. Listen, I don't know if I keep doing this article. It's wearing me out, man. The bottom line is this. In woke world, they think it's cool to grow something in a dish and eat it. And I'm going to tell you right now, ain't going to happen. Like I said earlier, I'm pretty sure that's how the zombie apocalypse starts. Just saying. Take me to we got a call? I'll get it real quick for the break. Let's do that. Tom with all the kids, lab grown meat. What are you thinking, brother?
Hey, good day, good day. So, you know me, I am a clearance shopper, and I was at Walmart, and I saw these packages of dehydrated chicken, or at least that's what I thought it was, dehydrated chicken. It said chicken all over the package in big letters.
Okay.
And it was like $3 for 3 pounds worth of dehydrated chicken. So I grabbed like 8 of these because we got the boys in the trail life and we go backpacking and, dehydrated food's great for that. As I was walking towards the checkout counter, I started looking at it and realized in tiny print it was fake meat replaces chicken. I was like, oh, heck no. If it ain't meat, we ain't eating it.
Oh. Well, listen, by the way, I know you're a wholesale shopper because you got all the kids. But nonetheless, right. I listen, that your kids would not do well with packages of fake chicken. So thank you for saving them from the zombie apocalypse.
But the fact that they have to hide it too, right?
Yes.
The packaging was fooling at a glance. I thought it was chicken, and that's disgraceful that they have to do that.
It absolutely is. It's a bait and switch. And can you imagine though if you gotten all the way home with it? Then what? Wow. Hey, thanks, Tom. Appreciate you. Take care.
Right,
Gotta go to a break. I gotta get my digestive system back in order now. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We are in the middle of adventures in woke world. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
And that's where my assignment was. And, I'm at that point, probably an E3 enlisted private and, working in a military intelligence unit. And coincidentally, run across Manuel Noriega in the parking lot. Because he was an MI guy.
Food truck and y'all were standing in line together or what?
No, but he was a military intelligence guy. So I was in a military intelligence unit. And at the time, he's only probably a major or whatever. But he was already pretty well known. And he showed up and he obviously very easy individual to identify.
You were there later.
And then years later, we go back and bag him. But anyway, so I'm kind of enjoying this military intelligence job. And then one day I'm sitting on the beach, and I know this is a really long answer to your original question, but I'm sitting on the beach and these 3 Hueys fly low level right over the top of us with shooters in the back and their legs out the door. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I really want to do that. And so it sort of re-energized me. I applied for flight school and I got in. Had I not gotten into flight school, I probably would have separated from the military because I did like it, but I felt like there was something more. But getting to flight school was then a game changer.
All right, so you got to flight school. So warrant officer candidate, become a warrant officer. What W01, I guess. Go to flight school as a W01.
No, what's different today is that you actually get commissioned as a W1 pretty early in the pipeline. Back then, you didn't get it until you were done flight school. So you go through as a warrant officer candidate. And what it does is it changes your date of rank is what it really does. I mean, you're still treated like, you're an idiot, whether you're a W1 or not, but your date of rank changes.
You guys, I made the joke earlier about the warrant officer mafia. Yeah. Y'all are, as warrant officers, you're technicians, you're technical specialists. You have niche, basically, skills and knowledge, but you're also this kind of in between that folks who are junior in rank or junior as officers always look at you like, I don't know what to do with you right now.
Right.
Can I tell you what to do? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And but y'all kind of ride in the middle a lot of times, it seems like.
And we're the ones that keep everything running.
And you are the ones that keep everything running.
Yeah.
There's the backbone of the Army and the NCO Corps, and then there's y'all that keep things running.
Right.
But all right, so you became a warrant officer. You went to flight school down at Fort Rucker, which is now called Fort Rucker again soon, it looks like.
Yeah.
But coming up, and we were talking about your raisings, so to speak, up there in New Hampshire. We're going to go forward into your story here in a few minutes. But what about being raised, where you were, who you were with, whatever else? What do you think instilled things in you that you wound up needing later on? Like, was it sports? Was it family? Was it faith? What did you see in your life that you looked later on like, I'm glad I had that because it built me up?
Yeah, faith is certainly part of it. Now, my faith journey had its ups and downs, and the lowest point probably being post Somalia, when looking back at what happened there, based on what we were trying to do, it could, in my mind, there was no justification for the horrors that occurred there, and I couldn't accept it because it was horrible. I mean, there's not a lot of things I've witnessed that were as bad as what happened there, and we were there for all the right reasons. So anyway, but faith is certainly part of who I am, and it's come full circle. I think playing sports helped a lot too.
Was it hockey?
I played hockey. I played football. I mean, I wasn't great, but I played, and you learn about working and teamwork and your role in the organization to make the overall team a success. And those things to me are invaluable if you can learn them when you're young. So I think a combination of all those things.
Yeah. Good enough. It's amazing sometimes what we draw on later. You don't even realize you've got it now. I can remember things as a kid that I didn't know that I grumbled about, and then later on you realize that instilled something.
Yeah.
So you went on, though, to do some pretty amazing stuff. So in the world of aviation, Army aviation, the 160th, which you're wearing the shirt right now.
I am wearing the shirt.
You are wearing the shirt.
By design.
Nightstalkers. So the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. I remember when I first got in, we called them Task Force 160.
Right.
But you guys were the premier Special Operations rotary wing guys. And how did you... I've never heard what is like. I know what selection is like to go to Ranger School. I know what selection is like to go to the Q course for Special Forces. But there's a selection process to. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades, y'all. That's what we're doing. So I'm in Adventures in Woke World. Hit me a sound effect. Just go ahead and play it.
Adventures in Woke World.
Ba, ba, ba. By the way, I think that was our very first sound effect. I think that's the very first one.
It's a very nice one.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's
that
good.
and Grand Council. Those are my two very first sound effects. And they are still with us these many years later.
They survived the test of time.
They did. So those of y'all that are in the military, new piece out from Red State. New Army regulations begins the process of unwinding Joe Biden's woke uniform styling. Oh, my gosh. So, yeah. Now, granted, I come from the Black Boot Army, right? I got in way back in the day when you still had to spit shine your boots, and we used to land. I'll tell you right now, you had certain BDUs you wore in garrison, and man, they starched up. Boy, they starched up. Like listen, we called it breaking starch. It was what?
Or you pay people to paint over them.
That's a different story. That's a different story. That's a different story. That was a scam at airborne school. I don't want to talk about it. They took my money, but I passed inspection.
So that's all that matters.
Yeah. That really was all that mattered. But yeah, so this article from Red State points out that in 2021, Biden's Army released a relaxed set of grooming standards, allowing other innovations such as hair highlights, exotic cuts in hair, nail polish for women, and a very amorphous hairstyle guide that field leaders found nearly impossible to interpret. And it also had things like, ponytails and other stuff. And then, women could wear their hair down to the middle of their shoulder blades. And all that is like gone. So what we're looking at is a return to what I would call good order and discipline. This is not designed to be the frat house. All right. The Army is not designed to be a place where people go to assert their individuality. You know what I'm saying? If you want your individuality, don't sign on the dotted line. The recruiter's lying to you. Okay. If you want to have purple hair and streaks, and you want to wear big dangly earrings, and you want to have, bright nail polish, and you don't want to have to, blouse your boots or anything else, I got news. It doesn't work like that. But that's what it was during the entire Biden era. Everything was going by the wayside. And those who had been in for a while were like, what is happening around us right now? Because once you begin to relax those standards, don't think for a second that doesn't have second and third order effects. You get Joe Snuffy, the ragbag, who comes in off the street, and he's got the first sense of discipline and order in his life he's ever had. And then somewhere along the way, he wants to have like his, I don't know, girlfriend's name tattooed on the side of his head and walk around proudly. No, that's not going to happen. Or he wants to grow a beard because he thinks it looks cool. I'm sorry. There are reasons why you can't grow a beard. Or he just wants to have long hair because when he's back on the block, he had long hair. And the mullet that he had back home would look really cool with his uniform. No. And, Shaniqua, she wants to have the painted fingernails. And, Josephine, she wants to have the dangly earrings. And then, the guy whose name was Bob now wants to call himself Bobina, wants to wear a dress, and it doesn't work that way. So all I'm saying is Red State is pointing out that the new standards have been put into effect, and we are going back to what I would call the Army of old. Can I have some applause? Just because I want it. I don't care if anybody else applauds. It's me. I spit shine my jump boots. I crease my BDUs. This is the right way. In fact, this is the way. All right, we're taking more. I got a little bit more on this. We've got some adventures in woke world. Are you enjoying yourself? I am. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. 60th, am I right?
No, yeah.
So
It's very similar, actually.
All right, so tell me about that.
So when I first found out about the unit, I was in Korea. And at the time, it was still what we call a black organization, meaning nobody publicly acknowledged that it existed because it had just been formed in the aftermath of the attempted rescue of the Iranian hostages.
Right.
That's why the unit was created, because, the analysis indicated that, look, you can't just throw together a bunch of assets and go try to do a complicated mission like this. It's not going to work. And so they created the unit. And there was going to be a second attempt, but most people don't know that. But the unit started training long-range missions in the desert, all the things that were required to go prosecute that target. And we're pretty much getting to the point where they were ready to go, and then the hostages got released. But the smartest decision maybe ever made by our government was, okay, well, the hostages are released, but we still need this capability. So let's keep the organization intact, fund it, obviously because everything runs on funding, unfortunately. And today, I mean, it's just an amazing organization. It's gotten more amazing over the years. So when I found out about it, it was, like I said, it was still black. And it's like people whispered about it in bars, and it's like, wow, I read Tom Clancy books. That sounds really cool, And I was getting assigned to Fort Campbell, which is where the headquarters for the 160th is. So I'm thinking, all right, I go to Fort Campbell, I walk across the street, knock on the door, say, hey, I'm interested, what do I need to do? And I made the mistake of signing into the 101st Airborne Division before I went and talked to the 160th. And by doing that, committed me to 2 years in the 101st. But in the end, best thing that could have happened to me.
Got a lot of stick time doing that.
I did get a lot of stick time, and in Korea, I'd flown medevac. And medevac is, it's great experience. You got to make a lot of decisions on the fly, quick response, bad weather, and you're flying by yourself. I was 22 years old. I'm flying real world medevac missions, as the pilot in command.
No kidding. Yeah.
I mean, you mature faster, or you die.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's basically how it works.
And others die with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a great experience. But what I didn't have is multi-ship, meaning like formation flying. Not a lot of, I mean, I had a decent amount of night vision goggle time, but not a ton. And you really need a lot of night vision goggle time to do well at the 160th. So getting that extra 2 years on 101st really helped me out. I went to the instructor pilot school while I was in 101st. So now I'm an IP. I got much more time. I got a lot more formation flying experience.
Yeah.
And then the process begins. So the assessment, again, it's a volunteer organization. So everybody that goes there on the pilot side is a volunteer. And then you have to go through an assessment, a lot like some of these other special units that you're familiar with. I mean, it's a psych eval, it's a swim test, physical fitness test, flight eval, board, all that stuff. And it happens in about a 3 or 4 day period. You know, the board's always the most dramatic because you show up with your dress uniform on, you go in there and a bunch of people look like they want to hit you. And they ask you very difficult questions and try to put you in uncomfortable situations. And, you know, there is no right answer. They just want to see how you answer the question, you know, what your makeup is. And that just begins the process. So then you enter green platoon if they decide to take you. Green platoon has changed quite a bit, but, you know, by the time you start to end, it's about 10 months. Where you're going through, again, land navigation, life-saving, physical fitness, just, you know, all the things that, you know, soldiering in general require at a high level. And then you start basic nav, where you're navigating in the cockpit with a map and a compass. Because even today, I think the priority is, hey, look, you need to know how to navigate, even though you got multiple systems in the aircraft that'll get you there.
Right.
When I was first in, GPS wasn't even in the aircraft yet.
Not at all.
The global positioning system, I'm assuming everybody knows what that is. But so we really did rely on a paper map and a compass. But you have to, you know, hit targets in the middle of nowhere at night with you know, very limited resources, and, you know, be able to do it every time plus or minus 30 seconds. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, you know, depending on where you're trying to go, that can be a pretty difficult task.
I can tell you it's hard doing it on the ground.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys have a different terrain markers from up there, but you're also flying by it a lot faster, so you're having to keep
You
track
can
with
miss
the
it
terrain.
pretty quickly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it starts with the planning process. You got to pick the right checkpoints, you know, in order to help you find your way. And then you learn the aircraft systems, because the aircraft have different systems than the conventional force does. So you got to learn how all that works. Then you got to learn the special tactics, like things like fast rope maneuvers and aerial refueling now.
I was going to ask about that.
All of that stuff is all unique to the unit. So you have to learn all that and demonstrate proficiency.
Was
Ship
Black Hawk
landing.
your airframe at the time too, right away?
Well, it was for me. It's different now because it's a pretty expensive aircraft to fly to put all those hours on it. So now they actually start out in little birds, which are the Hughes 500s, basically, for all that basic nav stuff, and then they move to the advanced aircraft.
Okay.
So again, all that takes about 10 months. And then again, kind of like Jared said, then you arrive at the unit and you're still nobody, because you're the FNG, basically, if anybody knows what that acronym stands for.
It's the one we won't say, but
I
yeah.
mean, there are people that won't even talk to you. I mean, you have not proven yourself. You just because you got through green platoon means nothing, right? You have to then make your way through the progression: basic mission qualified, full mission qualified, and then the ultimate level is flight lead.
And I'm assuming green platoon actually weeds people out too.
Oh, yeah.
So
Big
you have
time.
some that are there and they're not there the next day.
Oh, you lose people in assessment. You lose people in all phases of green platoon, and then you lose some people once they get to the unit, because either the deployment schedule is too much for them, or they just aren't performing the way you thought they were going to perform, even though they got through all that. When the rubber actually meets the road, sometimes it doesn't work out.
Was it of any benefit to you at all that you had your Spanish language skills that were already there? I mean,
No,
in some
probably
special
not.
operations, they want a language skill to be attached to it, but is that necessary at all in aviation?
No, not really. No, I think in that case, it probably didn't help me a whole lot. I mean, the more you know about the more things, it's obviously going to help you in life, but I can't think of a specific example where that helped me out.
So you guys, you said you had some flying with nods and night vision ahead of your time going to green platoon and getting into the 160th, but you guys fly with it a lot when you're in the 160th, right? Is that one of the things that differentiates the 160th capabilities, aside from the airframe having some other capabilities too? But Is flying with nods a big part of what y'all do?
Yeah, certainly at the time. I would say now there's maybe the focus is broader. I mean,
Yeah.
across the entire military.
Yeah.
But the unit was pioneers in night vision goggle flight. I mean, our guys were the ones that came up with the idea. When I
Like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 2. Hour number 2 on a hump day. We played the camel earlier on, and later in the show, we'll have the Grand Council with Jeff Poor and Dale Jackson. So join me with that one. In the meantime, right now, I got to finish up some stuff here with with Adventures in Woke World. So I gotta get a few texts here because the lab grown meat, it definitely drew some texts. And Scott from Somerville reminds us all that oysters look like phlegm. Yes, they do. And I don't eat them.
And I don't eat them either.
I don't eat them.
I had a friend growing up that would just kill oysters and would just order like 8 to 12 of them at the table, just mow down. And I'm just sitting there watching. I'm like, how? That's just so.
When you slurp it out of the shell like that and it slides down like something you should have spit out, that's just not edible.
But here's the kind that like drink the oyster juice out of the shell.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I can't do that. That's gross.
So I've said it before on the show, but I'll say it again. I have a theory. I have a theory that God gets the biggest kick out of when we eat oysters or snails.
Yeah.
Like he literally like elbows an angel and goes, watch. He's about to eat one. Oh,
yeah.
And then they crack up because it was never meant to be eaten.
Well, when we were in Europe, snails were on the menu at most of the places we went to.
Escargot.
Yeah. I read that and I was like, what is that? And my parents were like,
what's an escargot?
It's snail. So I was like, ugh, gross.
John T from Alabama says abortion is the same as sacrificing children. I would agree with that. Roughly Ann from Huntsville just says cell balls. Yes, that's exactly right. They call them cell balls. And they apparently adhere to a edible scaffolding. Yeah. Brent from Addison, Alabama wants to know, can it be fried? I suspect so, man. You can probably slap some gravy on it too, but it's still lab-grown meat. Tom, with all the kids checking in again, says, with regards to the uniform thing, says, I miss me some starch BDUs. He said, my roommate at Fort Drum had this stuff he painted and baked onto his boots, only wore them for uniform inspections and parades. Yes, I've seen that stuff. Melinda from Decatur says, I hope the new grooming standards for the Army will also prohibit false eyelashes. Yes. Thank you. Herb from Gurley, Alabama says, the first thing they did to us in basic training was to cut our hair. I remember one recruit who had hair down to his waist. The military barber asked if he wanted to keep his hair, and he gleefully said yes. 10 seconds later, all of his hair was in his lap. Nice. John from Huntsville says, oysters on the half shell with a little hot sauce is one of my favorite foods of all time. John, I'm concerned for you. That's not good. And then John C. from Madison says, we used to call it leather luster. Yeah, I remember that stuff. Leather luster. So here's one for you. We have an image we'll put up. Don't put it up yet. We have an image we'll put up in a minute. I got an article from the New York Post, came out last week. Adventures in Woke World. Have you ever heard of woke math? Woke math, like mathematics.
No, I have not.
I hadn't either. I thought it was going to say something like, the whole new math thing where you have to work your way through all kinds of word problems to get to a 2 + 2 = 4. No, woke math is exactly what it sounds like. It's where they inject social justice causes into math class. Why would you do this? I'll tell you why they do it. Because mathematics is usually a required course and they want their stuff in there somewhere. So they go to what's required and they just inject it, whether it matters, whether it helps you add numbers or not. So there's a philanthropist. Her name is Liz Simons, and she's a big donor to Zoran Mondani in the New York City mayor's race. She's the daughter of a hedge fund billionaire, Jim Simons, and she now oversees a nearly $1 billion endowment, and she gives to the charitable causes of her choice. And one of her favorite is what they call race-obsessed leftist lessons inserting social justice principles into education. Woke math being her favorite. Mondani himself wants to halt charter schools, expand universal pre-K, eliminate selective admissions for middle schools, yada, yada, yada. But this, like, why do you have racial justice in mathematics? They literally do things like she has given $800,000 to one organization to help organize seminars, toolkits, and support for teachers on racial justice math classes. She also gave $900,000 for teacher grants to promote racial justice through math. Put up that image if you got it, if you don't mind. There's an image right now that was with the article from New York Post. It has a picture of her and Mondani, and it gives a problem. It says, the problem is a rectangular garden is 12 feet wide, 5 feet long. What's the area in the perimeter of the garden? Now, most of us in the world would look at that and go, well, 12 times 5, 60 square feet of gardening space in your little square garden. No, the woke approach, can you read that out loud? I can't see it good from my screen.
The woke approach says encourage students to dig deeper and ask questions like, who owns this land? And is it a community garden? And do all members have access to healthy, fresh food? Students might still calculate the area and perimeter, but the math lesson becomes a way to discuss food sovereignty and environmental justice and racial inequalities.
Jeez, Pete.
Or racial iniquities, I should say. Sorry.
That is so womp, womp, womp. I mean, that is just absolutely, that's what woke does. What, you got a sound effect? There you go. That's actually woke math. That's what they call it. It's actually woke math. It's literally math, but they inject their social justice mantras into mathematics. Look, if the kids can't balance their checkbook, but they understand that there has white privilege, you still failed as a teacher. Just saying. And then there's the mouth of the South, James Carville. Here, that's what his nickname was.
Who is the Gollum? Remember we compared him to Gollum that one time?
He looks like Gollum.
Yeah.
Schmeagol.
Yeah.
It wants the precious. All right. So, but I will say this. He's been calling out his own party lately. I got an article that came out here about 2 weeks ago. James Carville blasting the Democratic National Committee for opening up its big event in Minneapolis. And one of the first things they did was they had a lady named Lindy Somick, treasurer of Minnesota's Democratic Farmer Labor Party, a self-described indigenous queer woman. Okay. You can tell where this is going to go.
Yep.
Adventures of the Woke World. The indigenous queer woman, Lindy Somick, from the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, got up, and the first thing she wanted to do was talk about a legacy of broken treaties, and that in many ways we still live in a system built to suppress indigenous peoples, and that we are holding this entire conference on former indigenous lands. And Carville's response was, "For God's sakes, lady." He went on to just rip it and said, "Lady, you're right. What we did to Native Americans has been well documented. It's a sad part of our history, but why are you bringing it up in an election?" He said, "This is an election. The DNC is not where you go to fix this stuff. The DNC does not exist to right wrongs. It just exists to win elections." And he says, "Please stop in the name of a just and merciful God." He said, "Don't you see what you're bringing us to? For God's sake, lady." And then he says, "And where's the DNC chairman? What's he doing? You got but one job, kid, to win."
Actually, apparently, he's talking about David Hogg. The DNC, he actually had his vote. He's no longer the DNC chair, remember? Because
he was vice chair.
Or the vice chair,
Yeah.
excuse me. Well, he got rescinded because of the voting process did not include enough people or something like that. It wasn't inclusive enough racially. It's like, that sums it up altogether.
I wonder if the indigenous queer woman voted against him.
I wonder.
You take your white privilege and march yourself out of here.
Yeah.
You silly man. Don't you know I'm an indigenous queer woman? Okay. Last thing I got for you for the break. We'll wrap up Adventures in the Woke World. There's apparently a movement now to try and get the left to please stop with the wokeness because they realize they've worn out their welcome. Sort of like James Carville, who just flat out says it, "For God's sakes, lady." But now we're sitting here 10 months after the 2024 elections, and there's an article on Politico. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Politico. Phil, did you go to Politico? I did. I go to these places so you don't have to. Politico is now suggesting there's a list of about 45 words and phrases the Democrats should start avoiding. Like, stop using them. Like, please, burn these from your memory. Some of the words are things like privilege, dialoguing, triggering, microaggression. I'm just going to skip through here. Body shaming. Please stop talking about the body shaming. Subverting norms. Cultural appropriation. The existential threat to name your flavor of the week.
Democracy.
Existential threats. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Democracy, economy, climate. Anyway. They suggest strongly they quit talking about radical transparency. They quit talking about food insecurity, housing insecurity. They stop labeling illegals as a person who immigrated. They stop talking about birthing persons and using the term cisgender. They stop talking about dead naming. And then heteronormative. What does heteronormative even mean? Do you have any idea? Heteronormative. What is that?
I have no idea.
Heteronormative. And they really strongly suggest they get away from things like BIPOC and incarcerated people and involuntary confinements. What does heteronormative mean?
Denoting or relating to a worldview that presents gender roles as fixed and heterosexuality as the normal or preferred sexual orientation.
Oh my God. So basically, don't talk about real biology.
Yeah, don't talk about reality.
Yeah.
Hetero reality.
So Eric Erickson, who's a conservative talk show host based out of Atlanta, I believe, but Eric Erickson said the Democratic Party brand is toxic across the country at this point with way too many people, enough that there's no way for them to win with a governing majority without changing the way they're doing things. And he basically went on to say, stop with the woke words. But then what will we have to talk about on this show if they did, JP? I don't know.
I have no idea. We'd find something else.
And there you have it. Adventures in Woke World. I'll get some of your text messages when we come back from the break and keep moving forward. Coming up next, I'm going to kind of stay that same vein, but let's talk about what we're doing to punch back. How about some culture wars? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Flight school, we actually flew with what are called full face goggles, meaning they have a frame around them where you cannot see anything other than what you see through the tubes. And we did flights during the daytime with filters on the ends of the tubes where the instructor can see, but you can't, because obviously that's the safest way to learn how to fly night vision goggles. But it's really difficult for the person actually flying under those conditions. I think I was actually the last class to ever fly full face goggles and do day filters. I'm not sure, but we made a transition right around that time. But it was guys at the unit who said, this is stupid. Cut the frame off, right? Because they're originally made for ground use, not air use.
Yeah.
So they cut the frame off and they made them flip up, and you know, there's been evolution after evolution.
They got the big cushion pad around.
Yeah,
and they're like,
the full
like
face
big.
ones. Yeah. They didn't last very long, but that's where it started. You know, until somebody said, no, we need to change this. And then they came up with ideas like finger lights and lip lights and infrared lasers and infrared tracers and all these things that you can see with night vision goggles that you can't see with the unaided eye. All were, you know, basically came from that early
So how much of that
stage.
training is done by simulators now? Do they do that?
A lot,
simulation?
a lot.
Yeah.
Simulators are really good. It was actually part of what I did after,
At
you know,
Pinnacle?
I transitioned out, was working that field. And it's a tremendous cost saver and safety. You know, I mean, you can do things in a simulator that are sometimes impossible to do in the aircraft, but certainly safer to do in a simulator. And you can do it cost effectively, because a lot of what's going on in the aircraft today that are advanced is mission management. It's not so much moving the sticks around, it's pushing buttons and understanding how to use the integrated avionics. And you don't need to learn how to do that in a, you know, aircraft that costs whatever, you know, $10,000 an hour to fly. Now, I'm not saying you don't need stick time. Okay, that's the trap that some bean counters tend to fall into. That
There's always that seat of the pants feel that changes things.
and actually the Army has come to realize that the aircraft they've been using for primary flight training at Fort Rucker now probably isn't the best, because you're not doing enough actual stick flying. There's a lot of automated systems on board that help the aircraft, or help you as a pilot, that you're losing that real ability to fly manually.
Yeah.
And they just did a pilot program where they're going to probably change how flight school is done, because there's been a realization that we got people that don't know how to fly a helicopter. I mean, they can mission manage all day long, but if they have to actually fly a bird, they're not as good as we used to be, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this: what now? The 160th, y'all are balls out a lot. So when you're flying, some of the stuff you're doing are not the things you would do or even be allowed to do in a conventional unit. But then you're also, like you said, you were back in the days when things were being pioneered. And I swear, I think it was you told me one time about strapping, what strapping a Gatling gun or something to the front of one of the birds just to try it out to see if it would work, and it
well-
didn't work very well.
Well,
Am I right in remembering that?
Yeah, I was part of the group that created the Armed Black Hawk.
Okay.
And it's still the only place that it's used is at the 160.
All right.
And yeah, we were running with scissors. I mean, we put a 50 cal, and these things are being mounted just on what was originally intended to be a door gunner pintle mount. So it's not really structurally designed to hold, a fixed forward weapon, but we modified it to where it could. And I mean, we
A little
had
duct tape, a little zip tie.
Oh, plenty of duct tape. Yeah, even coat hangers. I mean, you name it, whatever it took. But it was an amazing time to be there because you could go from sitting in the team room saying, "Man, it would be cool if we could do this," to convincing the leadership that there's some risk here, but we think we can mitigate it. Let's go try it. To then, that worked, writing a requirement and actually getting it turned into something that is fielded, and then go shoot it in combat. I mean, there's probably nowhere else in the world you could say that. And I experienced that on more than one occasion.
So what was the craziest thing you can remember y'all did and thought, "Man, we're never going to do that again"? The one that you sit around at 160th reunions going, "Remember that time?"
Yeah. Well, one of the most amazing stories, and I've told it many times. I like to joke that I shot myself down 5 times. And the most dramatic one, and none of it my fault, but the most dramatic one. So back to this pintle mount with a minigun on it. So a minigun is a 7.62 Gatling gun,
Right.
6-barrel. It'll shoot 6,000 rounds a minute at high rate. Okay, that is incredible. When people see video, like if you go online, you Google minigun, night firing, keep in mind all those traces.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Bulletproof influence, y'all. That's where we're at. Bulletproof influence. So Jeff from Indiana just checked in. He said, "Hey, Phil, woke math. There is no wrong answers. It's whatever you feel the numbers are today." Follow your own truth in your math. That's good. John from Athens says, "Sir, your online access, yada, yada." Okay, I hear you. Thank you very much. We'll let them know. Appreciate you, John. Marshall from Dubai says, "Phil, my wife and I, just like you and all the sane people in the world, were stunned about the killing of Charlie Kirk. I went online to watch Charlie's wife, Erica, give her first statement on her husband's murder. I didn't know Charlie was an Oregon Ducks fan. So I put this meme together. I sent it to Turning Point, but I'm sure they got more important to deal with than a meme. Love the show. Keep up the good work." Marshall, appreciate you. Yep. Yeah. It says, as Charlie Kirk and Jesus looking down on a Ducks game saying, "We have the best seats." Yeah. That's cool. Wow. You had something over there on social media you wanted to read? What you got over there, dude?
We got Charles Kiplinger on X talking about the lab-grown meat and nugget. Said you couldn't smother that in enough gravy to make it edible.
Yeah. No.
We also got John on the YouTube saying, "Woke math, 5 + 5 = 55."
Probably.
We also got another one on YouTube talking about the woke math. Said that's worse than the VA compensation math.
Yes. And I listen, try to figure those formulas out. Go ahead. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Wow. Jack in Huntsville says, "Here's a woke math question. How many generations does it take to eliminate our freedoms? Freedom is never more than one generation from extinction, away from extinction," said Ronald Reagan. "It's frightening how true this may be." That's well put. That's quite the math question. Elmo from Rising Fawn, Georgia. Rising Fawn. What a beautiful name, by the way. I know Rising Fawn. Rising Fawn is where I stop for gas on the way to Knoxville because the gas is cheaper. Rising Fawn, I told you before, too, about the story of Rising Fawn, right?
I think you have, but I can't
Rising
remember.
Fawn, Georgia is where people around here used to go to elope.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
right
yeah.
across the line. You could drive up the interstate, get married in Georgia, be back home by breakfast.
Nice.
Elmo from Rise and Fawn, Georgia says, "I've done electric work all over the third world. I've been in places where we had armed escorts, and I've seen a man bleed to death in the gutter after a motorcycle crash because there wasn't any medical assistance available. The United States is the greatest place in the world. I've always felt supremely blessed to be back home in this wonderful country. Thanks for the great monologue. Elmo, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Isn't it amazing how we go other places, we can see it, and it makes us appreciate things even more. JT Lacey Springs says it has been suggested to bury Democrats at 100 feet because deep down they're good people. That's a dad joke. That's a huge dad joke.
100%.
But it was funny.
It was.
I'm a dad. I liked it. Matt in Madison says, how does that woke math work for a negative balance? It tells you things are going to be okay. The government's going to fill in. Like that?
Pretty much.
That was pretty quick on my part.
Negative balance, government help you.
Whew. Keith from Parts Unknown says, it's like the Impossible Whopper. It's impossible to eat. I tried that one time. It's a plant-based, meat. And I thought, I'm going to try it so I can say I did. And afterwards, I was sorry I wasted my money on it.
The Impossible Whopper? I've not had it.
Yeah. I look at it and go, if you want meat, just eat meat. If you have to have something fake, then you don't really want it in the first place. So, I'm already opposed to, like, every once in a while, Charlene will do stuff like buy turkey sausage. And I'm like, no, honey, that's not the same thing.
Or turkey burgers. Or
yeah, it's not as good.
Yeah.
Just saying. Turkey bacon. Come on. You don't get bacon from turkeys.
No, you don't.
Doesn't work that way. Just call it turkey strips. I probably wouldn't eat it.
I only eat turkey on Thanksgiving. And just because it's tradition, I don't eat turkey outside of Thanksgiving, really.
Have you ever eaten turducken?
No, but it's like one of the.
Who thought that up?
John Madden he started the tradition of after the Thanksgiving games in the NFL to have the turducken on the field, and he bring a turducken to every Thanksgiving game he commentated on. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't know anything about turducken. No,
I think the key part of turducken is the first four letters.
Yeah,
it's a turd, and you go uckin after you eat it.
Hey, but it's three meats. How can you go wrong?
Well, you can go wrong a lot of ways. Like you're stuffing them inside each other. Just cook them separately and say, which one do you want?
I don't know. I've never had it, but I don't know how you can go wrong. Turkey with chicken and duck. So all three sound good to me.
They're all three good, but
I think it's the name that's unappetizing.
You don't shove one up inside the other and call it better. I don't know.
True.
I don't know. All right. Listen, we're going to come back from this break. We're going to jump on into some culture wars. What am I talking about? Culture wars. Well, what I'm talking about is sometimes it's like woke world kind of stuff or things that the Biden administration did that we're having to unravel. But the culture wars are the literal unraveling, the unwinding, the returning to normalcy of those things that the left has been determined to put in place. Think about it. Over the last few years, it was as if the left got a chance to run amok, and they did, and they took advantage of it. They were given free rein, carte blanche, do what you want, follow your truth, and they ran with it, man. And now the culture wars are really about us on the right saying, enough of that, we're fixing it. The era of common sense, as Trump called it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
That's every 14th round. Okay, or every 15th round. It's 14-1 tracer mix usually. So even though it's a steady stream of tracers, there's 14 more rounds in between each one of those you're not seeing. That's how many rounds are going downrange. So we got one on each side. And the way that we fixed forward mounted them is we put this, we called it a diaper pin. It was a pin that went through the pivot, which, because, if it's a door gunner, they're going to want to be able to pivot it, right?
Right.
We have to fix that. So we put a brace to hold it vertically, and then we put this pin through the shaft it's rotating on to hold it horizontally. And then it's a diaper pin because it goes around and it has a hook on the end that connects on the end.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Which sounds like that should be sufficient. Well, it is until it isn't. And I'm flying with Donovan Briley, who's a really good friend of mine, lost in Somalia, actually. First aircraft shot down. We're flying. He's in the right seat. I'm in the left. Night vision goggles. We're going in a range at Fort Knox. Live fire. No dry run. We got approval to usually have to make a dry pass to make sure there's nobody out there, but we got approval to go in hot. So we roll in. I'm flying. I pull the trigger, and the tracers are crossing in front of the nose. And so I
That's
let off.
bad, by the way.
Yeah, I let off
Don't
on the
cross
trigger.
the streams.
And I said, that is the worst expletive bore sight job I have ever seen in my life. So a bore sight is when you
Right.
orient the weapons to where they're going to impact where the sight is pointing, right? And Donovan, in classic Donovan style, says, Mike, I think we got a problem. So I look over, and I mentioned the finger lights earlier. Finger light is just a little battery-operated LED that is infrared, so you can't see it unless you're wearing goggles. We have some that you can see. This one you could see. And he turns on his finger light, and he points to the windshield. His minigun, that diaper pin can't come out while we were flying to Fort
God.
Knox. And when I pulled the trigger, the barrel rotation caused the gun to go left. You would think the wind would cause it to go right, but the barrel rotation caused it to go
A lot of
left.
force.
And it shot through the cockpit. It missed his knee by like 3 inches. He's got 7.62 rounds all through the cockpit. The windshield's blown out. Glass has been, because I felt something in my eyes, and it turned out it was glass shards from the rounds going through the cockpit.
Almighty, Mike.
And again, luckily, it hit. He had a armor panel on the side here, and the barrels hit the front of the armor panel, I think, but it stopped them from going any further, or it would come right through the cockpit and kill us both. And anyway, we landed, and what I like to say about this story is, this is back when it seemed like we had a little bit of authority to do things that maybe you'd get crushed for today. So I'm thinking about, okay, nowhere in the manual does it say I can't have holes in the windshield to fly this bird. So we put duct tape, back to the duct tape, over the holes in the windshield, cranked it up, and flew it back to Fort Campbell.
No,
Today, that would probably get you a little
with your
bit
finger
harder.
off the trigger the whole time.
We emptied the rounds out of the weapons, but that's probably the most dramatic thing that ever happened non-combat.
Yeah.
That I can come up with. And then there were 4 more of those that are less exciting. But
No, that's well, yeah, that's definitely one of those you swap over a beer and like, oh no, let me tell you the time we shot ourselves down.
Yeah.
That's
so they don't use the diaper pins anymore. By the way.
all right. So op tempo for you, you're in the 160th. Operational tempo is higher than the average unit, I would imagine, but it's a lot of come and go. What's the op tempo like in the 160th?
Nonstop.
Yeah.
Again, I was out when 9/11 occurred. I'd retired 6 months prior.
Really?
Made me feel like I was sitting on the bench and considered what I could do to get back in. But with my injuries from Somalia, I couldn't fly operationally anymore. But the reason I bring that up is just to put this in perspective. The rotation for our guys during the War on Terror was 90 days on, 90 days off. So you're in theater 90.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Man, just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call once again now Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that would just be how, by the way, the radio. And then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going the World Wide Web live streaming, looking inside the studio right now on the live stream in places like X and Rumble and YouTube, Facebook, and our website, rightside.media.org. And yeah, then there's all y'all that podcast. Tons, by the way, tons. I've got to look at the numbers. I haven't looked at them in a while, but like we're over 300,000 downloads, if I'm not mistaken, of the podcast. So indeed, thank you. Wherever you gather this show up, thank you. The fact that you listen at all means the world to us, and you're the reason why we do it. So we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Over 352,000.
Oh my goodness. Holy smolies. Over 352,000 downloads of the Rightside Radio Show podcasted form.
Yep.
You going to play some applause? What are you going to do over there? Just going to sit there and stare at me? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Dana from Athens, by the way, says JP turducken is just foul. That's a womp womp womp.
I don't know. I've never had it, but it sounds appetizing.
Jeff from Indiana says, "Hey Phil, did you hear that Zohran Mamdani has a new campaign theme song? Like Trump's was 'You Can't Always Get What You Want.' Zohran Mamdani's is the Doobie Brothers' 'What a Fool Believes.'" Ha 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 ha. Perfect music for his constituents. And then Moon Pie from Madison says, "This past Christmas, at suggestion of a coworker, I ordered a turducken." You can order these things? Said I ordered it from Hebert's Specialty Meats in Maurice, Louisiana. Had it shipped directly to the in-laws' house. It was great. He said, "My mother-in-law, who is a home ec teacher for many moons, is a great cook, told me she wants us to do that every year." Wow.
Got a turducken advocate here.
I mean, that's like, he's a turducken evangelist. At this
Yes. Yeah.
point. All right, let's talk about some culture wars. All right, so I'm through with woke world, but not really. If you get down to it, this is like an extension. These are the stories where we are fighting back. It's not just that they're woke, it's that they're doing stuff and we're going, that ain't going to stand. And sometimes they're doing it to us. It's the culture wars. So I got a piece here from 1819 News. I don't know if you saw it or not, but so, who was the only person who actually died at the January 6th events at the Capitol? That would be Ashley Babbitt. Ashley Babbitt, Air Force veteran. Was she inside the Capitol? Yes. Did she do something to break the law? I potentially, I don't know. Did she deserve to be shot dead at point blank range while she was unarmed? No, she didn't. And somehow or another, the guy got a medal, by the way, for shooting her. That just blows my mind. Well, the Department of War has authorized her to receive military honors posthumously. She was an Air Force veteran. She was shot and killed on January 6th. And it says that President Donald Trump recently announced that Babbitt would be receiving military funeral honors after she had been denied them under the Biden administration. Democrats tried to block that. They did everything they can to strip the military funeral honors away from her posthumously. And our own U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville is the one who stepped in and made sure they didn't get away with it. Democrat Senator Ruben Galejo tried to pass a resolution to reverse Trump's decision, and that wasn't going to fly. So, yeah, Tuberville is the one who stepped in and made sure that this was not going to be allowed, and I appreciate it. And so there's that. How about this one? Woke wars, culture wars, if you will. Representative Byron Donalds has just passed the House, or a bill of his just passed the House. It's called the DC Crimes Act. And what it basically does is it addresses crime in our nation's capital by closing what they call a dangerous loophole. See, what's happened is the soft on crime lefties that have been running the DC City Council that are allowed to pass, in effect, almost like state laws, because it's a district, it's not a state. They were being allowed to take 18 to 24-year-olds and allow them to be tried as juveniles. Despite the fact that they're legal adults, they were making it easier. Basically, they were trying to, you're 24 years old, and you got this assault charge, but we don't want that to be on your permanent record. That'd be horrible for you. Even though you're 24 years old, we're going to make sure that you're tried as a juvenile. Those records will be sealed, and you'll probably get a lighter sentence. It'll be great. Representative Byron Donalds has had enough of it. The DC Crimes Act would put a stop to all of that by requiring all offenders 18 and older to be sentenced as adults by removing any judicial discretion that would allow soft sentencing. Yeah. What the heck, JP? I mean, you're in your early 20s.
Yep.
And I look at this and go, how would you feel if somebody your age got off with like an assault charge and drug possession and stealing a car, and they got tried as a juvenile? Why are you smiling? What is that? What's so
It's just
funny?
funny to me. I don't know. It's just insanity. I couldn't imagine somebody. I mean, I certainly don't consider myself a juvenile.
You are not.
So yeah,
That's just it.
yeah.
I mean, good Lord. I got a piece here. Where did it go? Let me go further down in my stack. I want to find it real quick. Here it is. We could play the audio, but I don't want to. So I don't know if you're aware of, to the extent that Dearborn, Michigan has moved into, being a Muslim enclave in the United States. Dearborn, Michigan, the mayor is a guy named Abdullah H. Hamoud. And this is part of the Detroit metro area, right? So Dearborn, Michigan city council meeting, Mayor Abdullah H. Hamoud told a local Christian constituent that he was not welcome in the city after he had dared to raise concerns about a sign that was honoring an Arab American activist. So here's the storyline. Fox 2 out of Detroit reported, and I've got it on a Fox News piece here, that there was a street being named after, or signs being put up by the community honoring a guy named Osama Siblani, who was apparently a Hezbollah advocate. And so a gentleman by the name of Ted Barham, who's a Christian, went to the city council and said he's a promoter of Hezbollah and Hamas. He talks about the blood of martyrs irrigating the lands of Palestine. And we're in Michigan. And it doesn't matter whether we're in Yemen. He said everybody should fight within their means, but this is not right. And then he quotes other lines saying things like, this guy Siblani said things like, they will fight with stones, fight with guns, fight with planes and drones and rockets. And they wanted, he said, well, why don't we just go ahead and name it Hezbollah Street? All right. Council members interjected, but then Mayor Abdullah Hamoud decided to go personal. He got real intense with it. He said, you're a bigot and a racist. You're an Islamophobe. He said, although you live here, I want you to know as the mayor, you are not welcome here. This is the mayor saying this. He said, and the day you move out of the city will be a day I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of our city. Jeez. Listen, I got news. The folks in Dearborn better get a hold of themselves right now, because next thing you know, Sharia law is going to be in place. Now, I don't care if someone is Muslim, Jewish, Christian, or whatever else, but you don't get elected so you can sit up there and say, and because of my faith, I reject your ability to live in the city that I'm now the mayor of. And I feel certain that this guy, Ted Barham, probably didn't vote for him. It sounds like they're on different polar opposites of most ideological beliefs. But that Mayor Abdullah Hamoud has got the absolute wrong idea of his job. And the idea that he was going to say, you coming here and speaking like this, you are no longer welcome in the city, and I wish you would move. My gosh. That's the culture wars we're in right now, though, y'all. That's the culture wars. Let's talk about the crime crackdown. Memphis, Tennessee. Well, right now, Senator Marsha Blackburn told the Daily Signal that she's the one who gave FBI Director Kash Patel a sheet of the 2024 statistics about crime in Memphis when he came to her for his initial interview. I asked him if he would work with me to address the crime issue. The bottom line is this. What we're learning in the story from Daily Signal is that Trump didn't sit around and go, where do I want to go and intervene in crime? He was asked to come there. He was asked for the federal government to assist with a crackdown on crime in Memphis. Liberals are thinking, he's just picking on us. He's being racist. This is awful. The reality is this. You got members of the delegation who literally asked him to please come. Even Senator Bill Haggerty says the same thing, that he had a conversation with Patel and with Attorney General Pam Bondi, asking them about sending federal resources to Memphis last November. He said, we started that conversation at that point back when before they were even in office. The culture wars, they want to make this a race-based thing, and it's not. It's a crime-based thing. If you notice, there are other cities that are not near as bad off on crime where the racial demographics might be more in a certain minority faction or another. And Trump's not going there. He's going to one of the murder capitals of the world, Memphis, Tennessee. And he's doing what he can to clean it up. And he went, we know now, as part of this culture war discussion, he went at the request of the U.S. delegation from Tennessee. They wanted it back before he even took office. They were like, if you're going to do anything, we wish you'd think about Memphis. It was Marsha Blackburn who gave the stats to Kash Patel. I think that's very telling. That totally defeats the narrative that Trump's just finding a black, predominantly black cities they can pick on. Stop it. All right, we're taking a break. We'll take the break. We'll come right back. I got some more of this. The culture wars are in full swing, you guys. We are fixing stuff. Did you hear the one about the LGBTQ rights lawyer who got admonished by the court in Alabama? I'll tell you about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
Either Iraq or Afghanistan, you're back for 90, then back in. There are guys who did 30 rotations, 30 in combat. And when I say combat, I mean combat.
Yeah.
They're hitting multiple targets every night. And there's just no op tempo that's more demanding than that I know of.
That's every one of the airframes.
Yes.
Chinooks, Blackhawks.
Yeah,
Warbirds,
the Chinooks were the stars of Afghanistan, actually, because of the elevation, which was a real struggle for the Little Birds and even the Blackhawks. But Iraq was pretty much more a Blackhawk Little Bird show.
Yeah.
With certainly a lot of Chinook missions as well, but yeah, all the platforms.
Yeah, I was in my tour in Afghanistan was the beginning of the war, riding horses and stuff. But we were in the northern parts, north of the Hindu Kush, and so both Bagram and Kandahar down south couldn't get to us by rotary wing because getting over the top of the Hindu Kush was too much for most of the airframes they flew.
Yep.
And the only couple of times something happened where somebody came in from the south, I think they were flying Chinooks.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's a beast. I mean, it really is. There's some.
It's a freaking school bus with rotors on top.
Yeah, we call it a dump truck, but I love it. Yeah, it's a great aircraft.
But I've seen images of, some of those guys that fly in the Chinooks. It's amazing. They can balance on a dime. But they literally, one guy was with the ramp down in the back was hovering in the air, exiting troops onto a mud hut on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, there's a famous picture from Afghanistan. That's probably it.
Yeah.
The front wheels are off in space, with hundreds of feet below. Yeah.
So you had some major deployments. Operation Prime Chance, which a lot of folks don't realize is defending tankers that were flagged American and making sure they're safe.
Our friends, the Iranians, who
they're in the news again.
They've I don't even know what to say about them. It's just they've been a constant problem for 50 years.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because the Israelis are just to the point where they had to do something, and they did.
Yeah, and I think most of the world is glad they did. At the same time, holding their breath that they did.
Right.
But Operation Just Cause, so you were back in Panama again, and you went in with the 160th on that too, right?
Right. We did. We were there for 8 hours. So when the F-117 dropped the first bomb ever at Rio Hato, I was down there underneath watching it. It was pretty amazing.
Flying over places you've been to in the past, right?
Yeah. Some of the subsequent missions, there's where I used to live, and we're putting SEAL Team 6 in on targets around the city trying to find, because Noriega was still on the run at the time. That our mission was to capture him. That was it.
Yeah.
And we called it the hunt for Elvis because there was always an Elvis sighting somewhere, and usually it was bogus, but if it met the intel criteria, we'd go. And so we were flying all over the place.
And then Desert Storm also, also with 160th. Obviously, all your deployments there with 160th. But what was the mission in Desert Storm? Was it scud hunting or what?
It was, yeah. So the scuds, for those who don't recall, the concern was Saddam was launching scuds into Israel,
right,
which potentially would draw Israel into the fight, which would break up our coalition because our coalition had Arab countries along with Western countries as part of a unified force. But if the Israelis got involved, the concern was that would fall apart. So it was a huge issue to stop Saddam Hussein from firing scuds into Israel. So we were putting Delta Force on the ground in Western Iraq to try to find these launchers. And then we actually found some ourselves. And I was fortunate enough to put the first rounds on one.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
With an armed Blackhawk?
With an armed Blackhawk.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Take it out?
So in the end, they think it was a decoy. But there's a photo of it in this. I don't know if you've ever seen these books. Like there's an Army one, a Navy one, Air Force. There's a SOCOM book. They're big format, like coffee table books.
Yeah.
in that book for SOCOM, there's a picture of my FLIR. If you look at that picture, I don't care who you are, you're not going to think that's a decoy. I mean, so FLIR is forward-looking infrared. For those who don't know what that acronym is, it's heat sensitive, basically. You can see heat on the wheels. I mean, it looks real. I mean, this thing absolutely looks real. And then you can see the minigun rounds sort of hitting on the way up into but it didn't blow up. And we had a Scud expert back at the operations center when we got back, and he said, you're really lucky it didn't blow up, because if it blows up, it's like the space shuttle going off, because there's so much propellant in there.
Oh, wow.
And we were pretty close. We were probably within 200 meters when we broke.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just giving you all the truth you could slap on a bumper sticker. So I got a couple of stories here, both from 1819 News. Our friends at 1819 News, one of the sponsors of this show, by the way. So this one came out of Auburn University. So listen, there's so many layers in this story. But in the wake of the Charlie Kirk situation, you've got different people that have come out there and really put their foot in their mouths by openly, excoriating him in his death, or talking about how they're glad he's gone or whatever else. And you look at it and go, man, what in the world's wrong with you? Now, some are claiming this is a free speech right. No, you can claim that if you want to. And you know what? You can have that free speech. But at the same time, they have to look at you and go, can we trust you with kids? Can we trust you with patients? All those kind of things we talked about yesterday. Well, Auburn University had a situation. They just terminated multiple employees after one particular employee called Charlie Kirk a vile human after he was assassinated, saying, I don't give a blankety blank that he's gone, on social media. Oh, by the way, the guy they let go in this case is a drag queen. Yeah, wait for it. He's a drag queen that is one of the leaders of, let's see, here it is. Seth McCullough, also known as Colana Blue, a former music teacher at Drake Middle School, who was hired by Auburn University after having to leave Drake Middle School because 1819 News had reported that he had a podcast where he talked about how fun it was to reach his students with LGBTQ plus topics. And then Auburn hired him anyway last year in 2024. He's the one who just came out gloating and glowing over the idea that Charlie Kirk was murdered. Auburn fired him. He's gone. He's done. He was also, by the way, he was the head of the LGBTQ plus Pride on the Plains organization. Of course he was. But Tommy Tuberville thanked Auburn University. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall has thanked Auburn University. The man is now gone. And you have to wonder if he was resigning from a middle school because of the inability to recognize that putting his lifestyle in front of young, impressionable children wasn't a good idea. Why did Auburn hire him in the first place? What were they thinking? I don't know what they were thinking.
It's scary to see how these people have gotten into the positions that they have. And I mean, when I say these people I'm talking about, we saw the journalist from Alabama, or the journalism teacher from Alabama, also celebrating his death.
Yeah.
Like people who have gotten into positions to teach young people that their lifestyles are so awful that they're in a position, like they feel it's okay to mock somebody who just got murdered.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
Yet they're in very, powerful positions to talk to young people, teach young people.
Next story I got from 1819. LGBTQ rights lawyer indicted for lying during Alabama judge shopping inquiry. Okay. You may remember the VCAP bill, the Vulnerable Child Compassion and Protection Act that we passed in Alabama. Really good bill. What it basically does is it stops all of the transgender surgeries and medications on kids. And there's, of course, any number of, liberal activist groups that came out there and tried to sue to stop the bill from being put into effect. One progressive LGBTQ rights attorney has now been charged in a federal indictment with lying about a phone call he made while he was under oath. The lie was given during a judicial inquiry into whether they had engaged in judge shopping. So what happened in this particular case was you're not supposed to forum shop. You have to bring the case in the venue that makes the most sense for the case, unless the contract specifies otherwise in a contract case. So generally speaking, with some exceptions, a lot of times it's going to be where the defendant lives, or a lot of times there's going to have to be some nexus to the jurisdiction or the venue. That being said, we have this one particular lawyer who was caught forum shopping and then lied under oath, and he is now facing indictment, and well, he should. And that's right here in Alabama. This stuff's, I mean, it's real, y'all. It's everywhere. In the culture wars, I must also tell you that there is Senator Mazie Hirono. I'm not sure why the woman is addled. And to watch her and listen to her, it's as if she is not able to find her way, from one end of the house to the other, and yet she's a U.S. senator. Senator Mazie Hirono, Democrat from Hawaii, basically was questioning Kash Patel. Her question was, I think you're requiring pull-ups now of your new applicants to be in the FBI. And she said, one question I have is, you're now requiring applicants to be able to do a certain kind of pull-up, which a lot of women cannot because of physiological differences. Are you requiring those kinds of pull-ups? And it was quickly pointed out that what she basically just said was, oh, there are indeed biological differences when it comes to athleticism. How about that? She just admitted it.
I think Kash Patel's response too was, if you're going to tackle somebody, I would hope you're able to do one pull-up.
Yes.
That's a bit harsh.
Great response, but yes, it was real. All said and done, the culture wars are prolific. The skirmishes are every day. Sometimes there's major battles. But I'll just tell you, we're watching things happen on a daily basis to unwind the wokeness of the left. By the way, here's one that just happened. I got to say this too real quick. Just last week, Fox News. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has ordered the Army to dump its command promotion boards that were originally designed to eliminate bias. Yeah, it wasn't working out very well. It was hard to go ahead. They were doing all kinds of psychometric assessments. If you're an officer and you want to get promoted, you're having to go through this battery of stuff: cognitive capacities, emotional intelligence, conscientiousness, self-awareness, behavioral traits. It was to the point of cumbersome. It did not generate greater interest in leadership roles. In fact, a lot of people were starting to avoid it. And so, in what I consider to be a wise decision, the Department of War put the kibosh on the Biden era assessment plan to be get a promotion board going. All right, that's enough of that. There's a lot of stuff happening on a daily basis, but in the meantime, what you're about to have happen to you is the Grand Council with Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and little old me, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Break meaning you're diving, you're shooting, and then you break. And he said if you would have blown it up, it probably would have taken you out. So, okay,
Glad to take that all day long.
Yeah.
you still get credit though, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
And then there's Operation Gothic Serpent, which is heading into Somalia. Became known as the Battle of Mogadishu. A lot of your book, of course, and rightfully so, is focused on that mission. I want to dive into that for a bit, because that's the one. I mean, your situation in the Battle of Mogadishu took you out of running in obscurity in terms of your personal name, and thrust you into the eyes of the entire world. And I remember that. I remember when that happened. It was amazing to see it. But for those who don't recall, Operation Gothic Serpent, the intro into Mogadishu for the United States actually started under George H.W. Bush.
Correct.
But it transitioned in early '93 when Clinton took office.
Correct.
So you were there during Clinton's era, correct?
Yes.
All right. So Clinton took office in January '93. Task Force Ranger is the name of the U.S. presence, I guess, at the airfield there. And then in October, was it October 3rd, I think? October 3rd, '93, launched what many people just refer to as Black Hawk Down, because that's the book and the movie. And I guess code word Irene was what launched the mission, right?
It was.
Which my secretary downstairs at the law firm, her name is Irene. I
Oh,
told her
really?
one day, I said, I don't know if you're aware of the use of your name in modern pop culture. And she went, I've never heard that. So anyway.
And actually, that's my character that says it in the movie.
That is your character. Yeah. And I want to talk about the movie and all that too at some point, just to get your thoughts on it. But Rangers have the mission of going in and securing some high value targets, or securing the scene so that Delta can secure the high value targets. You're part of the flight in. Who were you bringing in, by the way?
So I was the flight lead, which means I'm responsible for my whole flight of aircraft of the Ranger blocking force. So it's basically split into two pieces. We had the assault force, which is where the Delta guys are. They're primarily on little birds. Yeah. And they're going to go in first because they want the element of surprise. They want to be, busting doors down before, with limited amount of time to react, right? If you put the blocking force in first, then you bring the assault force in, the bad guys have a little bit more time to react. So they're going in first. We're right behind them. So as soon as their birds pull out, we're moving in. And I had 4 Blackhawks that made up the blocking force, plus 2 spare attack little birds, plus the search and rescue bird. So we're all coming in together on the second wave, basically. And we just set up a box. I mean, all they want is put a Ranger platoon on each corner, and the purpose is twofold. One, keep more bad guys from getting in, and then obviously we call them leakers, keeping the people you're after from getting out. And that all went pretty smoothly, even though we'd done it 6 times before. This was the 7th mission.
Right.
And, we had tremendous success. We had captured, I think, 27 people on a list of 50, taken no casualties of any significance. We didn't lose any birds. I mean, it was all going pretty well. There were 3-day missions and 3-night missions leading up to that. And this 7th mission is a day mission, which created some risk factors that we knew about, but, not my call.
Part of the job.
But yeah, the commander makes the call.
Right.
They're within tolerance, I guess you could say, and when we go, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, it got crazy on the ground pretty quick, didn't it?
It did.
I know we had one Ranger injured on the fast rope end, and that created the scene. And then I guess the all call went out, and it seemed like everybody in Mogadishu had an AK-47, and they all ran to the scene.
And that was their strategy, which we found out later. They actually had set up a system where once they knew where we were hitting the target, and again, they learned this over time, right? When I talk about this, I try to compare it to sports, right? If you keep running the same play, the defense is going to adapt to that play, right? They understand, okay, this formation means this is what they're going to do, so here's how we counter that. It works the same way in the military. And so having done it 6 times, they obviously understood, okay, the helicopters all go to a target. That's where, they're going to put people on the ground. They're going to try to apprehend folks. If we can pin them in there, then, we might have some chance of
Plus, they were blocking roads, so
Right.
the ground convoy was having trouble.
Yep. So we found out after that was their strategy. Once they knew where the target was, they were all going to close on it, and it worked pretty well, actually.
Well, the Blackhawks stayed on station. In fact, one thing I've never known is what was the purpose of y'all? If there's going to be a ground convoy for the exfil, what was the purpose of y'all remaining on station like you did?
So we kept 2 attack little birds and 2 Blackhawks over the target for fire support. So
Okay.
the little birds, they've got miniguns and rockets,
Right.
and they're going to be slightly further out in terms of their restricted fire areas. Where the Blackhawks were being used, and honestly, hindsight being 2020, it wasn't a great way to do this, and it's not being done anymore, at least not in urban environments. They were being used for both the miniguns, which I don't think they used the miniguns a lot, but they had snipers on board. So it's a great stable platform for the shooter, but it's a 50-something foot long target for people on the ground that have weapons. Mm-hmm. And you can't fly fast, because if you're flying fast, your shooter can't hit anything. So the speed is less than what you would fly if you were, just trying to avoid fire. We're probably flying 50 knots, right? Which may seem fast to someone on the ground, but that's really slow for an aircraft. Mm-hmm. And it makes the aircraft much more vulnerable to ground fire.
And how far above ground were you?
Very low. I mean,
Okay.
the Blackhawks had to stay 150 feet and below.
Okay.
And the little birds, I think, were 300 feet and above, which worked out great. I mean, we'd done it, at that point, probably 50 times counting rehearsals, and never had any close calls in terms of mid-airs.
Were you just flying racetracks?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we had. When I was in Baghdad in '04, I can remember being on a cordon and search mission in Sadr City area, and they had changed all the TTPs because the racetracks got predictable apparently for ground fire, and so they were flying figure eights, and they were also altitude changes, and they had gone through all kinds of machinations to try and make sure the bad guys on the ground didn't have a predictable means of assessing, where the flight was going to be.
Right. Now, my flight, because I'm not one of these 4 aircraft over the target. I've already gone in and I put my guys on the ground, but I took my flight north of the city for exactly what you're talking about. And one of the guys criticized me. He said, "Hey, we need to stay
conservative and just plain right." All right, let me jump on in here. Once a week we do this thing. We start off on the Wednesdays here in the Camel up front, but then by the end of the show, we're jumping into a thing we call the Grand Council. So I bring in 2 of my brethren in talk radio. We ping each other with questions of the day, see where the chips fall. So let me just call the roll, see if we have a quorum for Grand Council. Looking northward to 770 AM, 92.5 FM, host of the Dale Jackson Show. Got a gig on Yellowhammer News. Also, by the way, does a TV thing. Dale Jackson, are you there?
Oh!
You are indeed. Stand at ease. All right. Looking southward all the way down to the Gulf of America. Editor-in-chief of 1819 News. Host of the Jeff Poor Show on FM Talk 106.5. Jeff Poor, are you there?
I'm present.
You are indeed. We're glad of it. All right. I pronounce a quorum. Hit it, man.
Assemble the Grand Council.
Ba-da. Ba-da. All right, Jeff Poor, you first. What do you got?
We've been seeing a lot of public figures or people in public places have this impulse to go out and say derogatory things about Charlie Kirk, and they're paying a price. How long will this rule be in place?
You know what? The rule about Charlie Kirk, or the rule about actual decorum and decency and common sense?
The rule about Charlie Kirk. I mean, is there ever a point where when people do this, we'll just shrug it off?
Personally, I don't think you should ever shrug off the senseless murder of an innocent person who did nothing except espouse his beliefs about something. Will there come a time when it's less sensitive? Certainly. But now's not the time. And what blows my mind is the inability of some people to figure that out. I mean, how hard is it to see that in the mere days after his death, you don't crow about it? You know what? Keep your opinions to yourself. If you lack that level of decency, try to at least find the decorum to keep your mouth shut. Dale.
Yeah, I don't think there will ever come a time when we'll just be like, it's fine that you were trashing a father of 2 who was gunned down in front of his wife and kids. For speaking his mind, and solely that reason. Everything they're doing is justifying his murder. I don't care what they say about it. That's all it's about. They know it. We all know it. And we're still kind of doing this dance in the mainstream media where they're like, well, they're just voicing their opinions. No, they're not. And all we have to do is ask this. All you have to do is ask this. If Ilhan Omar died tomorrow and people on the right were saying, well, she married her brother, and she's been kind of an enemy of the United States for quite some time. She's a bad person, and you know what? I'm not saying she deserved it, but good shot. I mean, if that's how people were behaving, they'd get canceled too. And to pretend that people don't understand that is so embarrassing that I said this before and I'll say it again. You may get those 4 likes on Facebook, but everyone on your friend page who doesn't like that thinks less of you now. Good job, stupid.
Yeah, and I would say too, it goes way beyond just being tone deaf. It's really about having a lack of decency. It's about having zero care or concern. It's the narcissistic view that what you said was so important that it mattered not how other people would feel when they heard it. If you're going to do something like this, at least don't do it in a place where the grieving have to put up with your crap. I'll tell you what, I'll segue off of that though. Well, Jeff, your own question. You got a thought on that? Go ahead and conclude it.
No, I don't, because I'm with you guys on this. It's just inappropriate, and you should use better judgment. I do wonder though, like the firings, when will it become a non-fireable offense or something like that? But people are going to do it anyway. We're going to be dealing with this for a while.
I think so.
Can I just piggyback on that since you're going to change subjects real quick?
I wasn't changing the subject, but go ahead. You can take it. What do you got?
you're the lawyer here. I mean, you're a politician and a lawyer. You have no good redeeming qualities. Can you tell me the thing about how a college or school can fire someone? We get a lot of this with tenure and all this other stuff for doing these terrible things.
Well, yeah, they have a code of conduct, first of all, and Auburn does. Like, for instance, Auburn fired drag queen boy today. That was going to be part of my question, but Auburn fired drag queen boy, and there's a code of conduct that employees are required to follow. There's also the idea that you may have tenure, but it does not give you carte blanche to do such things that would embarrass or dishonor the university that pays your paycheck. And then on top of that, you have a lot of at-will employees. An at-will employee under the law just technically means you can be fired at will for cause or no cause is what the law says. And so if you are representing, like for instance, if you work with kids and yet you have this complete insensitivity to the idea of murder being a bad thing and you don't crow about murder. There was an SRO, a school resource officer in Pennsylvania, I believe, who lost her job as a law enforcement officer. She was guarding kids and yet crowing about the murder. She's a police officer crowing about the murder. She lost her job. So part of this becomes purely legal, and the other part becomes just a matter of you represent our organization to some degree, and we cannot be affiliated with you, and we don't trust your judgment anymore, so we have to let you go before you wind up bringing a lawsuit on us. Jeff, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was going to say right to work state. I mean, the employment laws are pretty clear that you can't do this. So I think fireable offense is kind of in the eyes of the beholder, right?
Absolutely is. But you know what's going to wind up happening? Some of these that have tenure are members of the teachers union. I guarantee they'll have an AEA paid lawyer sometime soon helping them try to get their job.
I want you to, I mean, I know I already went, but the AEA coming in and giving these guys a legal defense. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. That's what they're contractually obligated to do, right?
I don't have a problem with it, but I still look at it and go, it's just unseemly. You look at it and go, wow.
What are they supposed to do though? Not give them the defense they're entitled to?
No, I didn't say that at all. What I'm saying though is it's still rank. We can talk about it. The fact is AEA lawyers typically defend really, really, really bad teachers who just want to keep their jobs because they can't get a job anywhere else. And so to defend that kind of stuff is the thing that you look at and go, well, that's the lowest of the low, lawyer. That's all there is. Dale, weigh in on it, man.
I just wanted to know because I keep getting this question, about how this behavior it works under contracts and things like that. And yeah, I mean, it seems pretty obvious. If you say something completely insane that brings discredit upon your institution, they should run you out. I mean, it's that simple. I just can't believe these people believe they're untouchable like this. I just don't get it.
Well, let me shift gears slightly because the story you guys had on 1819 today, Jeff, was actually an extension of an earlier story. So we have drag queen boy that was fired at Auburn, but he was also drag queen boy who had a teaching job at a middle school, Drake Middle School. And you guys brought out like in the last year or so that he had a podcast where he was talking about how he loved using his position as a teacher in a middle school to get his LGBTQ lifestyle in front of kids. And y'all brought that out. He had to resign from a middle school, and yet Auburn hired him. And now Auburn's had to fire him. What was Auburn thinking when they hired him? Were we in the DEI, the height of DEI at that point, and they needed a virtue signal, or what are you thinking?
They hired him as like he's working at the school library as like a librarian assistant or something. And I don't know, like he wasn't teaching kids. Still unseemly and kind of a weird, like, well, explain this on your resume about how this employment was terminated. They pick him up, but they hired him anyway. He knew somebody who knew somebody, but that's my understanding, or at least that's Auburn's side of the story.
Well, it didn't pay off well in the end, did it? Dale, your thoughts? How did this come to be that you can resign because you were not trusted with kids at a middle school and go to work at the university?
Oh, just a fellow traveler doing a make good. I mean, that's all that is. I mean, that's all it is. It's just taking care of their own. And he's a degenerate freak. They're degenerate freaks. Why not give him a job? I mean, we need more of this. He got treated poorly by the school system because they didn't want him around kids. So we'll just pay him and have him come here to the college because he got done wrong. Well, that's how
I realized I just asked the Gator fan what he thought about an Auburn hiring, but I guess I got the full load on that one.
I like the Hugh Freeze
Okay. All right. We're taking a break. That's round one of the Grand Council with Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and little old me. Y'all stay tuned. Coming back with round two. We will be right back.
So we could see what's going on. And I'm like, no, we're a contingency force at this point. I'm going north of the city where there's no threat, because if we're just doing circles up there, why would I want to be right here in the middle of this fight and put our entire flight at risk? And it was obviously the right decision to do what I decided to do. So I've got my flight and I'm north of the city. Now, north of the city is not a long distance. It's probably a mile.
Right.
And we're up there orbiting, basically on standby. I mean, when you got assets like that, if you could keep them on hand as a ground force, yeah, keep them on hand, right? Because you never know when you might need some kind of helo support. And then I get called back in when the first Black Hawk gets shot down.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So you were flying what, Super 6-4?
Right.
And Super 6-1, your friend Donovan, right?
Right.
So he's the first one to go down.
And Cliff Walcott.
Yeah, and Cliff Walcott. And then you were, I think you were directed in to replace him.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, we didn't have a sniper on board. So we're going in simply to use our minigun down close to try to provide fire support for the guys on the ground. That's what our mission has now become, which that was not our mission prior to that. But again, you adapt and you do what needs to be done to try to help the force that you're supporting.
And you've got a full crew?
4, yeah. 2 crew chiefs and 2 pilots.
All right, so Super 6-1 is down. What do you remember about Super 6-1, hearing it over the air, and recognizing that one of them's already down?
Yeah, I mean, I've always called myself an eternal optimist. It never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that Cliff and Donovan would be dead. I just assumed that, they took a round, they're going down, they're going to land the aircraft somewhere, we'll get them recovered, and we'll all go debrief this thing when this is over. But obviously now we've lost a bird, which is the first time that this happens for us. There had been another Black Hawk shot down by 10th Mountain Division previously with some fatalities, but it wasn't our unit. And it, I've always used the phrase big sky, little bullet. You don't think it can necessarily happen to you until there's enough volume of fire where it's going to happen to you. And there's also a search and rescue bird shot down in the middle of all this that then heightens that even more, because now they've shot down 2 aircraft in about 5 minutes, and we're going into this fray. This is getting real, really fast. And, I remember telling the crew chiefs, because I've got control of their guns from up front. So I've got an arming switch. And I armed the guns, and I said, okay, you're armed, but we got friendlies all over the ground down here. So we can't go in here just blasting away. When we see bad guys, we got to get situationally aware so we know where all of our forces are before you start launching 6,000 rounds a minute downrange.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in an urban environment, I don't want to say it's impossible, but right on the rooftops, it's really difficult to sort all that out. Because first of all, they're all taking cover. So, they're not standing out there waving at you. They're all taking cover. So trying to figure out where everybody was would have probably taken us a while. In the end, we only made it around 3 times when we got nailed by an RPG.
So RPG to the tail rotor, right?
Right.
In the movie, and later I want to get your thoughts on the movie, like I said, but in the movie, there's a scene where you took the RPG to the tail rotor, but initially you thought it was going to be okay until you started getting some play in the pedals and stuff like that. So what were your first thoughts, and how did that I mean?
Well, I knew we were hit, and I always tell people, if you want to know what it feels like, drive too fast in a parking lot and hit a speed bump. That's what it felt like. It felt like a jolt to the airframe, because you don't see it. Usually what they were doing is they let us fly by, and then they emerge from the doorway and shoot. So you're probably not going to see the launch. The crew chief might see it, depending if they're looking in the right direction. And then the reason they hit both of us in the tail is they're not leading us enough. So that 50-knot magical speed was just ballistically perfect for them to shoot at I'm sure they're aiming for center mass.
Which the crazy thing is, an RPG is not usually designed to take out aircraft.
No, but if you fire enough of them, eventually, they say they fired 150 at us on that mission. Now, not just at me, but on that mission. That's how many RPGs.
I never heard that. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they went all in. They thought we want to bring down a helicopter, and they were successful. So anyway, back to your question. Initially, I feel like I hit a speed bump, knew we were hit. I can see the airfield. It's 2 miles ahead of us. And looking in the cockpit, everything's okay. Controls were all responding. But what had happened was the gearbox had been blown apart, and it's like a transmission in your car, right? If you blow your transmission.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. All right, so we're going back to round 2, the Grand Council, bringing in my brethren in talk radio, Jeff Poor and Dale Jackson. Round 2, first question, Jeff Poor, what you got?
This was just brought to my attention by one of my employees at 1819. ACLU is weighing in on the Charlie Kirk situation with a headline here. You guys will love this, that attacks on the First Amendment are not welcome in Alabama, and all these people who are talking, I guess, about Charlie Kirk in the wake of his death are violating First Amendment protections. I would disagree, but the ACLU, I think they're trying to have it both ways here. I recall the ACLU of Alabama really coming after us during the Bubba Coppola in an episode 2 years ago.
Yeah, so the ACLU, never one known for going agenda free on their items. This is, okay, First Amendment does not necessarily mean you get to say anything you want to. There's the old adage of you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't incite violence. You can't call for someone's death. You can't conspire with others to create mayhem and violence. So there's that. But the other piece of this is it does not mean that you can't be fired at will. If we're a right to work state and your employer is embarrassed by your behavior, if your employer feels like you are bringing dishonor, if you sign a code of conduct, which some employees did, like at Auburn, if you sign a code of conduct and you agree to certain behavior and then you violate that, up front, your employee handbook says you're probably going to get terminated. And if they have, here's the other thing too, these employees oftentimes have what's called an administrative review process. They're allowed to appeal within. It's not lawsuit level yet. But I suspect most of these terminations will be upheld. Dale?
Yeah, I don't know why they feel the need to come to their defense. I guess it's some sort of rhetorical argument that they want to make about free speech and all this other stuff. Plus, they don't care. So there's that part of it. They don't actually care about this. They just want to stand up and punch conservatives in the eye like they have been doing for years. And anyone that gives these people money is a chump.
It's no telling how much money the ACLU has in its coffers from George Soros and all the others. Your own question, Jeff. What are you thinking?
I agree. And then this is it. I mean, you could say whatever you want, but it doesn't mean there's no consequences, right? That's right. The whole point of the First Amendment. Sure, go out and exercise. But if Dale Jackson, Phil Williams, and Jeff Poor go and say something, say something on our radio show that's our employer finds objectionable or fair game. But I guess the question would be this, Senator, now if the government's firing you for doing this, I mean, does that dabble in the free speech? Do they have a different argument than you and I and Dale would if, say, the state of Alabama fires somebody for what they said?
Yes and no. I mean, so bottom line is government action is the one you have to watch the most because the government should not bring the heavy hand of government in where it's not warranted. But again, if, like I said, in this particular case, tenure is not a carte blanche to do whatever you want to do. If you signed a code of conduct, if there are things that are expected of you and you violate that, you can still face the repercussions for your own behavior. And if we have a society where there is zero measure of punishment or consequences for your behavior, all we got is anarchy. So truth be told, some of these folks have to own up to it and say, yeah, I said it and I stand by what I said and I'm willing to lose my job for it. Like the young lady who was a conservative, who was a newscaster up in, I think, Kansas City. She actually said on her broadcast how much she worked for Charlie Kirk. She loved him and she was terminated. and she was going to be terminated. She actually resigned. She knew, she took the consequences, and she stepped away. Libs don't often work that way, but that's the truth. Any thoughts, Dale? Last closing comments there on that one?
No, I think that's right. I think they can do whatever they want at this point, and if we got fired, nobody would complain about free speech for us. So I think the government employees think they have a special level of protection, and maybe it's true to some degree, but I don't know how true it is.
In fact, who else in the world has tenure? Anybody else in the world have tenure? The only thing I've ever heard of that's close to tenure is a contract employee, but that's not the same thing. Tenure is like saying you get to stay no matter what, and that's just not good for anybody. All right, next question, Dale, real quick, what you got?
All right, so let's move. I guess we could say in Alabama and Tennessee for this one. You have the governor, Bill Lee, inviting in the National Guard to go to Memphis.
Yeah.
We have Kay Ivey saying, no, we don't need it here in Alabama. But she also basically acknowledged something we all knew and we've talked about before. That is that the government is working with Birmingham to bring down some of their crime. They said no in Tennessee for a long time, too, before they finally said, okay, fine, yes, we'll allow this to be the proof of concept. How strong is Kay Ivey on this?
I have not heard Kay Ivey say don't send them. All I heard is that there's no indications they are at this point. Have you heard anything, Jeff? Has Kay Ivey said no, don't send them?
So we don't need them.
I heard that's what I heard. I heard she's dismissed the possibility. No, not interested. No, we're not going to do that.
Interesting. Well, so the bottom line is Bill Lee, Marsha Blackburn, and Bill Haggerty all met with Kash Patel, and with Pam Bondi, and gave them the stats on Memphis, and apparently requested them to come in. So good on them for doing it. I think that Memphis needs it. I mean, I saw the top 50 murder capitals of the world recently, and Memphis is well up there on the list in the world. So good Lord, please fix Memphis. But I don't want to visit Graceland sometime, right? But I think in this case, we're not there right now in Alabama, but Birmingham had better toe the line, because it was just last year that the state legislature was floating a bill that would allow them to replace the police chief because they're doing such a horrible job of policing. So sooner or later, something's going to have to be dealt with, and the model right now is about to be Memphis. So we'll see. Last question, real quick. I'll just ask you this real quick. I did a segment earlier in the show I do called Adventures in Woke World. I got to ask both of you, would you eat lab-grown meat? If it was grown in a petri dish, would you put it on a burger, Jeff?
I have, but I just not interested in it. I mean, I'm just not something I want to regularly do. I'll try it once, but no, it's just something.
Did it look like phlegm on a plate? I mean, what was it?
No, it just tasted like it. You've had all these lab grown meats that aren't. I mean, they're plant based proteins or whatever. I assume that's what you're talking about.
Nah, we're talking about petri dish meat, like grown in a lab where they actually it's like.
Well, what's it grown out of? I guess would be
cloning meat.
That would be the deal breaker. Depending what it was grown, it had to be grown out of something.
Dale
right?
would eat it. Wouldn't you, Dale? You'd eat it.
I mean, I will eventually. I mean, we may not be there yet, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if they can get it to a point where it actually tastes like we want it to taste. And
I think it's how the zombie apocalypse starts. That's my theory. All right. Appreciate you both. Jeff Poore, Dale Jackson, and just little old me, the Grand Council, every Wednesday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. You ain't go anywhere.
Not for very long. Once
gonna
those
coast in at
gears,
that point, yeah.
once those gears, run without oil for any period of time, they're going to self-destruct, and that's what happened. And then when the tail rotor left the aircraft, again, that's impossible to describe. If you haven't experienced it, I can't describe it. I mean, it's this violent spin of the aircraft, out of control.
What do they call that? Counter rotation or something, where you're trying to restore stability?
Well, the tail rotor is there to counter the torque of the main rotor system. Again, if you think about a drill, people are familiar with that. You pull the trigger, you can feel it want to turn. That's torque. So the same thing's happening to a helicopter, obviously with a lot more force. The tail rotor is mounted horizontally to push against that force that's wanting the airframe to spin. Once that tail rotor is gone, there's nothing. So essentially, if you were left affected by anything else, what would eventually happen is the airframe, minus wind drag, obviously, would be spinning as fast as the rotor blades are in the opposite direction. Yeah. That's essentially once it reached equilibrium. That will never happen, but that's how much force you're talking about here. And I remember looking at my feet trying to convince myself you're doing the right thing in terms of which pedal you're pushing, but it is having no effect on the aircraft. And then I'm like, okay, we lost the tail rotor. You know, again, this is something you can't train that. There's no, you can't do it in a simulator. I mean, we can do a loss of tail rotor in a simulator, but you can't do the violent effects, the physical violent effects of the airframe in a simulator. But I knew what had happened. And the only thing you can do is shut the engines off, because again, that's what's creating that torque. So if you can remove that force, it'll stop that spin, but now you have no engines. Yeah. So that's not good either, especially at low altitude. But it's what you have to do. You can't possibly maintain control of the aircraft if it's just spinning out of control. So in a Black Hawk, we don't have control of the engines on the flight controls. So the co-pilot or the non-flying pilot has to shut the engines off. So I looked over at Ray and I said, we lost the tail. We better pull him off. And he knew he was an experienced guy. I actually had more experience than I did, and pulled the engines off. But we're spinning so fast that he said, and we talked about it on the ground afterwards, typical instructor pilots. He said, we're spinning so fast, the centrifugal force was causing him to not be able to lift his arms up over his head, which is where the engine power control levers are. So he got one to idle and got one about halfway off, which slowed the spin but didn't stop it. And now, with no engine power, we're falling out of the sky like a Coke machine. And all I could do is try to keep the aircraft from flipping upside down, which, again, I don't know if anything I did made a difference, honestly, but all I can tell you is we crashed right on the wheels. And that's the only reason I'm still here.
All right, so you're on impact. Now, you said something on the ground. Did Ray make it?
Yeah,
okay.
We all survived the crash.
Okay.
The crew chiefs were hurt really bad because they don't, first of all, they don't have as good as seats, at least in that version of the aircraft. It's been improved since. And they're probably not strapped in, meaning, they operate on what we call monkey harnesses back there.
Yeah.
So they're on a strap, but they're not strapped into their seats, which have, all of this crash survivability.
I use those as a jump master in Blackhawks.
Because it allows you to move around and do the things you need to do. And, you get in the seat when you have to land. Well, they didn't, obviously we're not planning to land, so they're probably not strapped in, or at least not likely that they're both strapped in. So, that violent crash, they were probably not going to make it. But Ray, he was not hurt as bad as I was. And we're talking, once I regained consciousness, we're talking about what happened, and there was no reason to talk about what happened. We should have been talking about, hey, the heck, we're going to survive the next 5 minutes here. But we did, and that's when he explained what he had tried to do. And then he was able to get himself out of the cockpit. There's no way I could get out. I had a femur fracture, crushed vertebrae in my spine. It's hard to get out of a Black Hawk cockpit when you're healthy. Mm-hmm. With those injuries, there's no way. So I just thought, I'm just going to fight it out from the cockpit.
I did not recall that your co-pilot had made it. We're listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure, and that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, watching us live streaming the show, video and all, live streaming the show every day. Places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightside.media.org. And then all you guys that podcasted after the fact, which apparently now I just learned a minute ago is over 350,000 downloads of that podcast. Good Lord. That's just amazing. But what it also is something we appreciate. We don't take it for granted. Wherever you catch the show, however you catch it, I say all those things to say we can see it, we're aware of it, we know it, and we appreciate it. You guys are the reason why we do what we do. Listen, I got this last piece of the show I was going to do. I'm calling it the Charlie Kirk fallout. Things that we're finding out, things that are happening. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there about people losing their jobs because of their inability to maintain some sense of decency and embarrassing their employer to the point that the employer doesn't even want around anymore. You know, lowering the amount of trust we have in them because they care for kids or they care for patients, or they're supposed to be in law enforcement and they're crowing about a murder. Those things are happening. A couple things we're also finding out that are not the big headlines, but they're still like, wow, really? Do y'all remember, JP, you might remember, when the shooting took place, there was an older guy who was arrested at first. We thought he was a shooter.
Yep.
Did you hear about why he did what he did?
Yeah, I heard him say that he was trying to provide cover for the actual shooter.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what's actually crazy is this guy's background. He was also arrested on 9/11 at the site for something crazy like that.
On 9/11?
Well. Yeah. He's got a weird history. So I don't know. But yeah, I did see that was his reasoning.
Well, the guy we're talking about is a 71-year-old man named George Zinn. George Zinn. And at first, people thought he was a shooter because he apparently actually began yelling that he was the shooter. And he says now he did it, like JP just says. He admits, quote, he told the police that initially that he was in order to draw attention away from the real shooter. What an idiot. Zinn allegedly approached a police officer immediately following the shooting and yelled, "I shot him, now shoot me." And the police, of course, took him down, arrested him. But what we're finding out now was he's just an absolute nut job who was trying to basically distract law enforcement, who was in the middle trying to figure out where the real shooter was and get to him in time to capture him. And this guy does that. Who does that? Anyway.
Yeah, he's also been arrested for a bomb threat in Utah as well. So I think this guy's just a nut.
Good Lord. Get him off the streets, man. He needs to have a psychological evaluation to decide whether or not he is a danger or a threat to himself or others. They're going to have to appoint a guardian over this guy or something. It's amazing. How about this one? Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar out there making her usual hateful remarks. Nancy Mace is specifically asking for censure of Ilhan Omar. How often is this going to happen? I mean, I realize that we have firebrands that run on both sides of the aisle. I get it. They are allowed to have their opinion. But at some point you look at it and go, you're a member of freaking Congress. When are you going to act like a grown-up? I mean, like literally, when are you going to act like a grown? Ilhan Omar strikes me as the angry, petulant 12-year-old, just like the prepubescent, angry 12-year-old who wants to yell at her mommy and tell her that she's not going to clean up her room. That's what Ilhan Omar strikes me at, and yet she's a member of Congress.
Who thinks Somalia is better than America, she said.
I say go there. But Omar said the other day on Mehdi Hassan's podcast that she is, quote, fed up with Americans memorializing Kirk for his good works. In her words, she said, I think there's a lot of people out there talking about it, just want to have a civil debate. There's nothing there's nothing more fed up than to completely pretend that his words and actions have not been recorded. Basically, then she went on to say, these people are full of blank and we have to call them out. How about this? We're calling you out, and Nancy Mace wants her censored. And I don't blame her. I mean, people need to understand you may have a First Amendment right. That does not absolve you of consequences. It does not mean that you're not going to wind up having people disavow you, want to censure you, or for that matter, does not even want to hang around you because you act like this. And we're seeing it left and right. This one just so irked me. I don't know if you've seen it. ABC News reporter Matt Gutman. Do you see this?
Yeah, where he was. Yes,
okay.
I did see the clip. Yeah.
All right. So if you haven't already seen it, the district attorney in Utah, where they have now charged the shooter, had a full-blown text message between the shooter and his transgender boyfriend.
He's a dude. Yeah.
He's a dude.
Biological dude.
Okay. He's a biological dude.
Yes.
All right. So, all right. And his boyfriend. All right. The tranny boyfriend. The text message was filled up with, did you do it? Oh, I'm so sorry. And all the gushings and thing. Anyway, ABC News reporter Matt Gutman got on there on the news and started talking about, just that text message was so fulsome and so robust and allegedly self-incriminating, but it was also so touching all at the same time. And you're looking at it going, how gross are you, Mr. Reporter guy, who apparently lost complete sight of your job and decided to go ahead and identify with the shooter, having a gushing commentary with his transgender boyfriend, and you found it touching. He was confessing to a murder in the text.
Yeah. He's since apologized, so he's trying to backtrack on it.
Of course he is.
But that on top of, I don't know if you saw on the Abby Phillips show last night, I don't know who the commentator was, but he was claiming that the shooter was actually defending his transgender boyfriend because his parents didn't like him and he was trying to fight for other transgenders. It's like, seriously? This is the twist on the story you
got to run with that?
Y'all's side is going with here?
That's all they got, man.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
It's unreal. I got a call right now from Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Jeff Rowe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just crossed into Kentucky.
Man.
Going through the chicken coop actually right now.
You are northbound and down, loaded up and trucking.
I don't know if I can pick up any eggs here at the chicken coop or not, but hopefully we'll get by without any rotten eggs.
Oh, well, I've talked about a lot of stuff today, man. I talked about everything from lab-grown meat to the Charlie Kirk aftermath, even the culture wars and people losing their jobs. What's your pleasure? What would you like to talk about?
Also, this old boy there, I guess the 71-year-old, reportedly, when the cops went through his phone, he had child porn on there as well.
Oh, my gosh. Really?
Yeah, that he's since been rearrested for that. Yeah.
Is that what I see? A text come in to Tammy from Huntsville said the same thing.
Yep.
He had child porn on his phone. Yeah. Okay. This is obviously a depraved individual.
Citizen.
Yeah. Yep. Fine, upstanding man, a pillar of society. Absolutely.
I wonder if he's MAGA.
They'll try to find a way to say he is. I mean, right now they're trying to say the shooter was MAGA.
Yeah, I wonder if he is MAGA. I mean, you know, they're everything he says that they say we are. They're talking about him. So I mean, maybe he's MAGA. I don't know.
Listen, you know, it's amazing to me how the left does not want to embrace their own. Isn't that funny? But it's funny how that works. They definitely want to say, well, I think it was one of your people that did it. No, actually, it was not. Yeah, it's a hot mess, brother.
It's about like too. What the one reporter said that Charlie might have been hit by a stray bullet from Celebration from MAGA.
Oh yeah,
you know,
I saw that
shooting in there and all that. How dumb is? I mean, can you get any dumber than that statement or not?
That boy's dumb as a bag of hammers. There's no reason. I mean, there's no wonder why he lost his job. That was Matthew Dowd on MSNBC, wasn't it? And the first thing he did was talk about, you know, we don't know. It might have just been like some MAGAs out there celebrating. And well, he's no longer there. So good on MSNBC, by the way, for letting him go.
And then you talk about the guy on ABC. Yeah. It sounds like to me he might be, you know, I think he's affectionate to this guy's boyfriend or something. Maybe the way it sounds, you know, he's kind of maybe jealous or wanting to take him out or something. You never know. The way he's talking about is affectionate for him.
By the way, is that transgender boyfriend, is he cooperating with the police? Do we know?
He is. He's actually the one who provided the text messages we saw yesterday.
Okay.
So he is cooperating. Yeah.
So they didn't have to seize a phone and get into it to find those text messages. He actually provided those as evidence of what's going on.
He's provided all of those texts. Yeah. And the letter apparently that was left. So yes, he's cooperating.
I'll be honest with you. Had he not done so, it would be considered conspiracy.
Yes.
And I don't know that he turned him in. That's the other thing is, he's giving evidence now, but when he had the opportunity, is he the one who contacted the police or is he doing it after the fact?
Well, his dad obviously is the one that turned him in, but I think everything the FBI has asked the boyfriend for that he's provided is from what I've understood.
Okay. Wow. All right. Hey, listen, before I go to the break though, Jeff, I got to know, would you eat lab grown meat?
Maybe lab grown pickled eggs. I don't know.
Listen, if they start growing lab-grown pickled eggs, the world is over. It's time for Jesus to come back at that point. And just please let there be some revelatory moment where the Lord comes back and saves us from lab-grown pickled eggs.
Maybe it will hatch a lab-grown pickled chicken. Who knows?
It might be in Revelation. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and the signs are the lab-grown pickled eggs. I don't know. Just saying.
Maybe they eat truck stop fish as well. You never know.
Well, I'd eat that before lab-grown meat. I'll just tell you right now. All right, brother. Be safe on the road. We're going to take a break and come right back. All right, man. Take care.
Have a good one, y'all.
See you, man. All right, we're taking that break. We're coming right back. When we get back, I'll take a few text messages, and then I'm going to go out on the day playing you something from Charlie Kirk himself. It was so worth it. A friend of mine gave me this morning. I thought it was worth playing for y'all. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. But they didn't survive. Am I correct?
Well, they were killed in a firefight.
Yeah, they're all killed in the firefight. Yeah, I remember that now. All right, you're still stuck in the cockpit. I remember, I'm assuming it was when I read it, that you had a kind of an off the books weapon. Didn't you have an MP5 or something like that? Mm-hmm. Was that standard issue, or
was
that
for us?
Yeah, was okay.
Yeah, we used the MP5. They don't use it anymore, I don't think. But that was our we had an M9 pistol and an MP5.
So you wound up having to engage targets yourself while you're on the ground in the cockpit?
Actually, not from the cockpit. That's one area where Black Hawk Down deviates from what actually happened. I mean, I did consult a little bit on the movie, but really not much. I guess if they're going to exaggerate something and make you look better than you actually were, that's a good thing. But yeah, they have me, blasting away from the cockpit. It was amazing how quickly Gary Gordon and Randy Sugar got to the cockpit. There were no Somalis there yet. And that's why I hadn't fired any rounds. I had my MP5. I was ready to go, but nobody had showed up. And then all of a sudden, Gary and Randy are standing next to the cockpit. And I'm like, wow, this is over. There's a rescue force here.
Which is an amazing story in itself. I mean, both of them wound up with the Medal of Honor posthumously. But I recall reading that they both requested 7 times to be put on the ground, knowing full well that there was only going to be 2 of them and no telling how long till the guys of the Rangers got there.
You're right about all of that. And again, I only know about it secondhand because obviously I'm not on the aircraft with them. But they were told initially no, and eventually convinced the leadership that if they were not let in, we were lost. And you don't know what's in the mind of someone else, but they had to know, hey, this is going to be dicey at a minimum, because it took 8 hours for another American to get to our crash site.
Yeah, which is crazy when you think about the fact that as you were going down, you could see the airfield roughly 2 miles away, and yet it took 8 hours for anybody to get there.
And it's because, well, we were resource constrained, and there were so many things happening. You had 6-1's crash site, you had the convoy, you had the target, now you had my crash site. So really, the commander's got 4 things that he's got to deal with, and he didn't even really have the resources for one.
By the way, I'm going to chase a rabbit real quick. I don't know if you heard this yet, but the whole base renaming thing that happened.
I was going to bring this up
about Gary Gordon.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant solution. And I just read it a couple days ago. Yeah.
For those who don't know, that Fort Gordon was one of the names that nobody knew was apparently tied to a Confederate. I didn't know that Benning was. I didn't know that Rucker was. I just went and trained there, as I'm sure you probably did. But Fort Gordon got renamed to something, but Fort Gordon's getting its name back for your rescuer, Gary Gordon.
Right.
Yeah. That's I think that's pretty. Now we got to find a Fort Shugart somewhere.
Yeah. They might have to create one. Yeah.
What do you recall about Shugart and Gordon being on the ground? I mean, I've read their story separately. I've read it in your book, but give me and the listeners, when they got on the ground and were talking, what were your thoughts? What was the conversation?
It was brief, purely mission focused. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They knew, hey, look, we got to get him out of the cockpit, meaning me, because I'm too vulnerable there. I'm sitting up, basically up off the ground, elevated, and so that was one of the primary things they wanted to get done, is get me out of there, and then essentially, as well as they could, set up a perimeter. Now, the way the geography of this crash site was, there was a wall right to the right. The nose is pointing forward as I'm sitting here, and there's a wall right to the right. Now, it's just a corrugated tin wall, basically, but still, there's no way for someone to access the site from there. So I believe their decision was, we're going to go secure the left side, put me on the right, and that is, in fact, where the attack primarily came from, was the left side. So I can hear it, and then I could see Somalis, onesie, twosies. I fired all the rounds in my weapon at the Somalis that tried to come in on the right side, but the bulk of the attack came from the left side.
How long was Shugart and Gordon in the mix? I mean, how long until they were actually taken?
It's hard to say. I know there's an official timeline somewhere. I honestly don't recall. Time is so hard to judge when things are in that state of chaos. I would say probably 10 minutes, maybe 15, from the time they showed up to the side of the aircraft to, Gary went down first, and at that point, Randy's almost out of ammunition already. And he came around and he asked me where the crew chief's weapons were, and I told him, and he went in, grabbed one, and then he gave me what I believe was Gary's weapon, which still had rounds in it, because I had fired all the rounds out of my MP5. And then he went around the nose of the bird. He made a quick radio call, and we were told on the radio that a reaction force was en route. Again, cause for a little bit of optimism.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says JP gets an A++ for his nearly perfect performance. However, today's winner is obviously Phil with an A++ for his absolutely brilliant performance. Thank you, John. Appreciate you, as always, for being a part of the fabric of our show. Hey, there's some Charlie Kirk events. I know, JP, you know about there's at least two of them that I'm become aware of. But what do you got on that?
Yeah, there's some Charlie Kirk events this week for vigils and events to honor Charlie Kirk. If any of our listeners are nearby, want to check them out. There's one tonight in Tuscaloosa. If any of y'all near Tuscaloosa, it starts at 5 o'clock to 7 p.m. This is hosted by CJ Pearson. Savannah Chrisley will be a special guest. Alexis Wilkins will be a special guest. Jared Hudson is also speaking there tonight. It's at Two Dimes Bama down in Tuscaloosa from 5 to 7 if y'all want to check that out. But then also Sunday night at Frederick's Outdoors in Decatur from 4 to 7 will be another event with Brylan Hollyhan speaking there. Barry Moore will be speaking. I plan on going there this weekend. That's Sunday night from 4 to 7 up there if y'all want to go check that one out as well.
From 4 to 7, 3 hours.
4 to 7, yep.
Wow. Okay. Wow, that's great. And listen, those are happening all over the nation right now.
Yep.
And I think we're going to find that while Charlie Kirk was impactful in his lifetime, amazingly impactful, and while his loss is being felt, I think we're also finding his legacy is becoming even more impactful than his lifetime was. Mm-hmm. And that's playing itself out daily right now. So in a minute, we're going to play a clip. And I'll tell you right now, I literally thought I wanted today to have a more positive feel to it. So as I put the show together, my intent was, if you notice, my monologue had more humor built into it intentionally. And if you heard like Adventures in Woke World and Lab Grown Meat, I could have done other stories, but I decided to do those because I wanted a bit of levity and I wanted some stories that we could kind of, crack a joke over. And then, of course, we did the culture wars. We definitely talked about that. But the reality is I wanted this show to be today a little bit lighter. Not that there's not darkness out there. And it's not that I'm trying to say, let's hide from it. It's just that every once in a while you have to pause. You have to look at what's going on around you. And you have to say, oh yeah, let's not forget that there are great things happening that we should not take for granted. There are wonderful things happening. And yes, this is a crazy world. One of the things that really struck me as I've gotten to, like, even more so now, like I'm almost feeling bummed that I didn't ever get a chance to meet Charlie Kirk in real life or when he was still here. But I will say that I have seen far more clips and heard, pieces of things that he said. One of the things that really strikes me is his constant ability to be positive. He also had the innate ability to do improv. I mean, he was an off the cut. You could ask him a question, and I bet 75% of the time the answer would come out in a way that would make me say, I wish I'd thought to say that. But he was on a campus at some point in the last couple of years, and he was asked a friendly question. It was a friendly question, but he addressed it in such a way that was just humorous. It was enjoyable. And I thought, you know what? Why don't we end the show on that? So I've got this clip. It's a little bit over a minute long. This is Charlie Kirk being asked a question at a college event about if he had to be stranded on a desert island with at least one liberal, who would it be? Go ahead and play, bud.
I didn't ask Charlie Kirk a funny question. Even he couldn't help but laugh. But his response turned the whole debate into pure entertainment.
My question for you is, if you were stranded on a deserted island with any political opponent of your choice, who would you choose and why?
Definitely not Gavin Newsom. Nope. That wouldn't happen. I'd have to think about that. Let me see. So let's play this out. If you're stranded on a deserted island, you can reason that you want that person to be very productive, not a complainer, and have done something in their life. So that's like no Democrats at all. So, and they're also like, most of them are super old, so they'd probably like die while we're on the island. That'd be like super awk. Like, oh, Chuck Schumer's dead. Like, but yeah, I would have to think about that. How long am I on this desert? I'm infinitely stranded with no hope of reconciliation? Forever. My goodness. I don't know. I would probably pick like the most resourceful Democrat that I could find. By the way, if you wanted to survive on a desert island, there'd be like a million Republicans to pick. Like, I'd pick like Joe Rogan, like people that could actually, hunt and gather, right? But if it's about survival, I don't know, the Democrats would try to unionize the island with just two of us. They would constantly steal my stuff and then call me a racist. Like, it'd be terrible.
That's just classic. And I love the fact that he took a moment that, he could have said anything and it was absolutely funny. He could have delivered that harshly. He could have delivered that in a way that was punitive. He could have just chosen not to even answer it and said, let's find a question that's meaningful. I don't want to do it. No, he dived on in and everything he stands for came out with a laugh. Isn't that something? And I think that's a gift. And I think the world was a better place for his abilities and for the kind of things that he said. What you got, man?
Well, I think that's what made him so effective
Yeah.
Because he knew his audience. He knew his audience that he was gifted to speak to was college kids, younger kids. So he knew whenever he needed to get down to their level and, talk about something funny like that, or, he knew how to navigate the waters that he was in with his audience. Yeah. And I think that's what made him so effective. And yeah, you're correct. I mean, seeing all these clips after the fact is making you appreciate him almost even more. Yeah. I watched him for a lot of the time that he was, kind of rising to where he was at. But even after the fact that he's passed away, I'm still seeing clips I've never even seen before that are great, So he was truly the best at mixing it up with the college kids and, giving his message in the most effective way possible.
I got to see him. I think I said the other day, I got to see him speak in person once. And that was back when he was really getting started. It was like he was fresh. And this is 2018. So, 7 years ago, TPUSA was underway, but it was not near the impact that it was here in the last year. And it was something I walked away from that going, my gosh, that guy's going to rule the world one day. Yeah. And what's funny is he never tried to run for office.
I think one day he would have run for president. I think one day he would have. Yeah. But I think he knew his mission at this time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to remember these things. There are indeed more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.